The transit's crosshairs were steady on the benchmark when I saw him. Same jacket, same hard hat, standing 200 yards west on a ridge we'd already cleared. Problem was, I was looking at Mike through the scope, and Mike was standing right next to me checking the data collector. I'm a licensed land surveyor. Been working the Four Corners region for 11 years now. You spend that much time staring through instruments, you learn to trust what you see. Your equipment doesn't lie. Math doesn't lie. But that morning, something was wrong with the math. This was October 2023. We had a contract with the BLM to survey a mineral lease boundary about 12 miles northeast of Shiprock. The area is mostly high desert juniper, rabbit brush, arroyos cutting through sandstone. Navajo Nation land surrounds the federal parcel on 3 sides. We'd gotten the proper permits, notified the local chapter house, did everything by the book. Our crew was small. Just me, Mike Benally, my rodman, and a Navajo guy I'd worked with for 6 years, and Travis Chen, a young instrument tech getting his hours for his license. Good crew. Professional. Mike knew the area, had family near Sanity, and he'd made it clear before we started that we need to be respectful, finish before dark, and not mess with anything that wasn't explicitly part of our survey. We'd started at dawn from the section corner, working our way west along the northern boundary. By 10:30 a.m., we'd set 8 hubs and were making good time. The weather was clear, temperature in the low 60s, light wind, perfect conditions. That's when I saw the figure. I was shooting a backside to our last control point, doing a routine check before we moved the instrument through the scope, magnified 25 times. I could see every detail. Orange safety vest over a tan work shirt, white hard hat with our company logo. The figure was standing on a small rise we'd surveyed 2 hours earlier, maybe 200 yards out, just standing there, facing our direction. Mike, I said, keeping my eye to the scope, you seeing anyone else out here today? No. Why? He was looking at the data collector, typing in point descriptions. There's someone on that ridge west of us, dressed like you. Mike looked up, squinting toward where I was pointing. Travis stopped coiling cable and turned to look too. I don't see anyone, Travis said. Use the binoculars. I stepped back from the transit, pulled my Nikons from my vest. When I raised them, the ridge was empty. Nothing but juniper and rock. Huh. I lowered the binoculars, raised them again. Still nothing. Heat shimmer maybe, Travis offered. Mirage? At 65 degrees? I checked the thermometer clipped to my pack. Wrong time of day for that. Mike hadn't said anything. He was staring at the ridge, not with curiosity, but with something else. Something tighter. We should keep moving, he said quietly. Finish this section. I've learned over the years that when Mike gets that tone, you listen. He's not superstitious, not prone to jumping at shadows, but he knows things about this landscape that I don't. Practical things, usually where flash floods run, which areas have unstable ground, what the weather's going to do 6 hours out. We packed up the transit, moved to the next setup point. I tried to shake off what I'd seen, focus on the work. We had 6 more points to shoot before lunch, then the southern boundary in the afternoon. Straightforward work, except it wasn't. At the next station, I was setting up the tripod when I noticed boot prints in the dust near the point we were about to occupy. Fresh prints, Vibram sole pattern, size 10 or 11, same boots Mike wore. Mike, you walk over here already? I asked. He was 20 feet away, setting up the prism pole. No. Why? I knelt down, examined the prints. They came from the west, circled our point, then headed back west. Single set. The person had been walking normally at first, then the prints changed. The stride lengthened 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet between steps. No one walks like that. No one runs like that on this terrain without breaking stride. Then the prints stopped being boots. I'm not talking about them fading or getting unclear. I mean, the tread pattern changed mid-stride. One print was a Vibram sole. The next print, same size, was smooth, almost like a moccasin or barefoot, and something else, something with distinct toe marks that were too long, too separate. Travis, I kept my voice level. Bring the camera. I need to document something. Travis came over with our Nikon D850, the one we use for site documentation. I had him photograph the print sequence from multiple angles while I took measurements, entered them in my field book. Professional habit document everything anomalous. Later, if you need it, you have it. Mike walked over, looked at the prints without getting close. His face went carefully neutral. We're leaving, he said. We're in the middle of... We're leaving. Now, that's when we heard it. From the west, from somewhere in the juniper thickets between us and the next ridge, came a sound like metal scraping on metal, high-pitched, rhythmic. It stopped, started again. Then a voice, very clearly, called out, Mike. Hey, Mike. I need help with the prism. That was my voice. My exact cadence, my phrasing. I was standing right there, and I hadn't said anything. Travis went pale. What the fuck? Back to the truck, Mike said, already moving. Don't run. Walk steady. Now. I grabbed the transit off the tripod. That thing cost 12 grand, and we weren't leaving it while Travis collapsed the legs. Mike had the data collector and the prism pole. We walked at a fast clip back toward where we'd parked, about a quarter mile east. The voice called again, closer now. Mike, where'd you guys go? Mike was ahead of us, moving fast but not panicking, picking the smoothest route. The guy grew up hiking this country. I stayed between him and Travis, who kept looking back over his shoulder. Don't look back, Mike said without turning around. Just keep walking. What is that? Travis asked, voice shaking. Something that wants us to separate, Mike answered. That's why we stay together. That's why we keep moving. We were passing through a shallow arroyo when I heard footsteps behind us, running footsteps, getting closer. I turned, just for a second. It was me. Not someone dressed like me. Me. Same red flannel shirt, same faded Carhartt pants, same ball cap with the Nevada BLM logo from a job I'd done 2 years ago. It was running at an angle that would cut us off from the truck, and its gait was wrong. The knees bent backward briefly with each stride, the arms swung too far, and the head stayed perfectly level like it was on a gimbal. Contact front, I said. Old infantry training kicking in. 100 yards. Mike glanced back. Didn't break stride. Stay between it and Travis. Don't let it separate us. The thing wearing my face grinned. I could see it clearly now at 70 yards. The smile was too wide, showing too many teeth, and the eyes were wrong, too far apart, too reflective in the morning sun. Hey, it called in my voice. Wait up. We cleared the arroyo. Back on flat ground. The truck was visible now, 200 yards ahead. White Ford F-350 with our equipment boxes locked in the bed. Safety. The thing changed direction, trying to flank us from the south now. It was faster than us, gaining ground. Mike reached the truck first, unlocked it with the key fob. I practically threw the transit into the back seat, climbed in after Travis. Mike started the engine, dropped it into drive. Through the passenger window, I watched the thing stop about 50 yards out. It just stood there, watching us leave, still wearing my face. Then it did something I'll never forget. It waved goodbye with one hand while scratching its own neck with the other hand. Except the second hand reached all the way around from the back, fingers bending the wrong direction. We were a mile down the access road before anyone spoke. What the hell was that? Travis finally asked. Mike kept his eyes on the road. You won't get a straight answer about it. Not from anyone who knows. That looked like it looked exactly like Travis couldn't finish. Yeah, I said. I know what it looked like. We drove back to Farmington in silence. At the office, I filled out an incident report listing unforeseen site conditions and possible trespasser as reasons for suspending the survey. Weak language for what we'd seen, but what was I supposed to write? I tried calling the BLM project manager, got voicemail, left a message saying we'd need to reschedule, possibly with a larger crew. He called back an hour later, listened to my carefully worded explanation about someone mimicking crew members on site. There was a long pause. Was this near the Shiprock lease, 12 miles northeast? Another pause. I'll reassign the project. You don't need to go back. Just like that, just like that, you'll still get paid for the full contract. He hung up before I could ask why. That evening, I met Mike at the Spare Rib in Farmington. He was already halfway through Coors when I sat down. You knew something could happen out there, I said. I knew it was possible. That whole area, people avoid it. There's reasons. Or was it? Mike looked at his beer, took a long drink. My grandfather would say it's someone who went the wrong way, learned things they shouldn't have learned, broke taboos. After that, they're not really people anymore. They can look like people, sound like people, but there's something else. A skinwalker. He flinched at the word. Don't say it out loud, especially not around here. Does it matter? We already saw it. Seeing's one thing, naming's another. You name it, you acknowledge it, you give it. He struggled for the word. Permission, maybe. Recognition. Better to just forget about it. I can't forget what I saw, Mike. Then remember it quiet, and if you ever see boot prints that change into something else, or hear your own voice calling from somewhere you aren't, you do what we did. You get to your vehicle, you leave, and you don't go back. I wanted to argue, to say there had to be a rational explanation. But I'd spent 11 years measuring distance and angle with instruments that don't lie. I'd seen what I'd seen through a surveyor's scope at 25 power magnification. I'd heard my own voice coming from something that wasn't me. Travis quit the next week, didn't give notice, just stopped showing up. When I called, he said he was moving back to Colorado, working retail, said he was done with surveying. I kept working the Four Corners region, but I turned down any projects east of Shiprock. Mike and I developed new protocols, always 3-person minimum crews, always maintain line of sight, always out of the field before sunset. We invested in better radios with encryption so we could verify voices, started using code phrases that changed daily. Most importantly, we learned to trust our instincts. If something feels wrong, if you see someone where no one should be, if you hear voices that sound too right, if you find tracks that change, you don't investigate, you don't try to make sense of it, you leave. Because out there in the backcountry, especially on the Colorado Plateau near Navajo land, there are things that don't follow the rules. Things that can wear a face that isn't theirs, walk on legs that bend wrong, cover ground faster than they should. And the math on that, the geometry of something that can be in 2 places at once, that's a calculation I don't ever want to solve. If you're working remote country anywhere in the Four Corners, especially if you're near Navajo Nation land, here's my advice. Work in teams of 3 minimum. Establish visual contact protocols. If anyone on your crew appears in 2 places at once, even for a second, you pack up and leave immediately. Don't try to verify. Don't investigate. The time you waste questioning what you saw is time that thing uses to get closer. And if you hear your own voice calling from the distance, it's not an echo. It's not a prank. It's time to go. If this story kept you up at night, or if you've got your own encounters from the backcountry, drop a comment below. And if you want more stories from surveyors, rangers, and field workers who've seen things that don't fit in the field manual, hit subscribe. Every week, I bring you accounts from people who work in places most folks never go and sometimes wish they hadn't. Stay safe out there. I'd driven I-40 through New Mexico 600 times in 8 years, knew every mile marker between Albuquerque and the Arizona line. So when my CB caught someone using my voice, my exact voice, calling in my truck number at a way station I'd passed 3 hours ago, I knew the night was about to get complicated. Name's Derek Paulson. I run freight for a regional carrier out of Amarillo Dry Goods, nothing exotic. My regular route takes me from Texas through New Mexico into Arizona 3 times a week, sometimes 4. You drive the same highway that often, it becomes more than just asphalt and mile markers. You know, which truck stops have the cleanest showers, which scales are most likely to pull you in for inspection, where the wind hits hardest coming down off the mesas. This particular run started normal enough. I had picked up a load of restaurant equipment in Amarillo at 1400 hours on a Tuesday in November 2024. Destination was Flagstaff, delivery window opening at 0600 Wednesday. Easy run, plenty of time, no weather concerns. I crossed into New Mexico at Glen Rio right at dusk, the sun dropping behind me in Texas as I pushed west. The truck was a 2022 Freightliner Cascadia, 73,000 pounds gross. I'd done my pre-trip in Amarillo, tires, lights, brake system, load securement, all good. The rig ran smooth, cruise control locked at 67 mph, right in that sweet spot where you're making time without hammering your fuel economy. I cleared the Tucumcari way station at 1930 hours, rolled right through on the green light, pre-pass transponder doing its job. Quick glance at my log, I had 6 hours left on my 14-hour clock, more than enough to make Gallup where I'd planned to shut down for my 10-hour break. The CB had been quiet most of the evening. Little chatter around Tucumcari. Someone asking about parking at the TA in Moriarty, but nothing unusual. I kept it on channel 19, volume low, mainly for traffic updates and bear reports. Mile marker 189, just west of Klein's Corners. The CB crackled to life. Tucumcari scales. This is unit 974 Delta westbound at your 20. Over. I straightened in my seat. That was my voice. Not similar exact. Same slight rasp from years of truck stop coffee. Same cadence. Same phrasing I used on the radio. And 974 Delta was my truck number. But I was an hour past Tucumcari, coming up on Moriarty, and I sure as hell hadn't keyed my mic. The scale house responded, 974 Delta. Roger that. You're clear to bypass. Have a safe trip. 10-4, appreciate it. 974 Delta clear. I grabbed my mic, thumbed it. Breaker 1 to 9. This is the actual 974 Delta westbound at mile marker 189. Someone's running my call on the radio. Any driver's copy? Silence for a moment. Then an older voice came back. Yeah, I copy you, 974. That's weird, brother. I heard that other call too. Y'all got someone messing with you? Not that I know of. You see a Freightliner, Cascadia, white with blue lettering, back near Tucumcari? Negative. I came through there 30 minutes ago, didn't see any Freightliners at all. I felt a cold weight settle in my gut. Someone was mimicking me on the CB, using my exact truck number, claiming to be where I'd been 3 hours ago. Could be someone who'd seen my rig, written down the number, decided to screw with me. Wouldn't be the first time some jackass played stupid games on the radio. But the voice, that was the part that dug into me. I've had people imitate me before, do bad impressions. This wasn't an impression. This was my voice, perfect down to the slight Texas accent I picked up from living in Amarillo. I let it go, kept rolling west, watched my mirrors more carefully than usual. At Moriarty, I fueled at the TA, pulled up to the pump, started the fill, went inside to grab a coffee and hit the restroom. The place was moderately busy, couple of other trucks fueling, few four-wheelers, night shift clerk behind bulletproof glass looking bored. When I came back out, coffee in hand, there was another driver standing near my truck. Older guy, maybe 60, wearing a worn Peterbilt cap and a Carhartt jacket. He was staring at my cab with a strange expression. Help you? I asked, approaching. He turned, looked at me, looked back at the truck. You're driving 974 Delta? Yeah. Why? You calling at Tucumcari On the CB about 45 minutes ago. No, I was already past there by then. Somebody's been using my call sign. The old driver shook his head slowly. Son, I was parked at that rest area just west of Tucumcari when I heard that call, and I watched a white Freightliner with your number go past, heading westbound. He paused. But here's the thing. I pulled out behind it, tried to catch up to get a look at who was driving. That truck was running 90, maybe 100 miles an hour. No trailer sway, no smoke, just fast, impossibly fast. I lost sight of it before the next mile marker. That's not possible, I said. These rigs are governed at 75, and nothing that heavy moves like that without. I know what I saw. He met my eyes, and I saw he wasn't messing with me. He was scared. You be careful out there tonight. I've been driving this route for 30 years, and I've heard stories, things that don't make sense, things that borrow. You get what I'm saying? Not really. Navajo land runs right up against this highway in places, and there's things in that country that can look like something they ain't. My ex-wife was Dine. She told me stories, warned me about certain things. He glanced west, toward where the highway disappeared into darkness. If you see your own truck coming at you, don't stop. Don't investigate. Just get to a lit area with people around and stay there until sunrise. That's a hell of a warning based on a CB call. It ain't just a call, son. It's how that truck moved. It's how it looked. He tapped the side of my trailer. This is solid, real, got weight and physics to it. That thing I saw, it looked right, but it felt wrong. You spend enough time on these roads, you learn to trust that feeling. He walked back to his Peterbilt without another word, climbed in, and pulled out. Left me standing there with my coffee getting cold and a growing unease in my chest. I finished fueling, checked my load straps though they hadn't been touched, did a quick walk around. Everything was secure, normal, real. Back in the cab, I updated my logbook, plotted my next segment. Moriarty to Gallup was roughly 120 miles, about 2 hours at my cruise speed. I grabbed my 10-hour break at the Loves in Gallup, sleep in the cab, be fresh for the final push to Flagstaff in the morning. Simple plan. Professional. Routine. I pulled back onto I-40 westbound at 2100 hours. The highway west of Moriarty is high desert plateau, mostly empty country. You pass through a few small towns, Suwannee, Laguna, Mesita, but mostly it's just darkness and the white lines unreeling in your headlights. To the south, you can sometimes see the lights of Albuquerque reflecting off the clouds. To the north, nothing but mesa and sky. I was approaching mile marker 143 when my CB crackled again. 974 Delta. This is 974 Delta. You got a copy? My own voice, calling my own truck number. I grabbed the mic. This is the actual 974 Delta. Identify yourself. I'm you, the voice said, perfect mimicry of my inflection. I'm running about 10 miles ahead. You'll catch up soon. Mouth went dry. Who is this? Check your mirror. I think you've got a clearance light out. Instinct made me glance at my passenger mirror. In the reflection, I could see my trailer lights, all functioning, but beyond them, maybe a quarter mile back, I saw headlights. Distinctive pattern, 4 sealed beams in a Freightliner configuration. White truck visible in the reflected glow. Another Cascadia, same color as mine. I watched it in a mirror. It was closing distance fast. Too fast. My speedometer read 67. That truck had to be doing 90 minimum. And gaining. You see me yet? My voice asked, over the CB, but the transmission was coming from behind me now, from where those headlights were closing in. I pressed the accelerator, watched my speed climb to 75, the governor limit. The headlights kept gaining, 80 yards, 60, 40. You can't outrun yourself, the voice said, almost playful now. The truck pulled into the left lane, came up alongside me. I kept my eyes forward, didn't look. Every instinct screamed not to look. Derek, the voice said over the CB, not bothering with call signs anymore. Look at me, Derek. The truck matched my speed exactly, staying perfectly parallel. I could see it in my peripheral vision, white like mine, same configuration. Look at me. I made the mistake of glancing left. The cab was lit by dash lights, bright enough to see clearly, and I was looking back at myself. Same face, same dark blue jacket, same white ball cap, but the eyes were wrong too, reflective, catching light like an animal's eyes, and the mouth was smiling, but the smile went too far up the cheeks, almost to the ears. The thing driving looked like me playing dress up in my own skin. There you are, it said through the CB. We should convoy together. Safer that way. I jerked my eyes back to the road, hands locked on the wheel. My heart was hammering. The old driver's warning came back. Don't stop. Get to a lit area with people. Gallup was still 70 miles ahead. The next truck stop with services was the Flying J at exit 53, maybe 40 miles too far. But there was a rest area coming up. Mile marker 134, westbound side, basic facilities, restroom building, picnic tables, lights. Not much, but it was lit and it was close. You're sweating, the voice observed. I can see you sweating from here. Why are you scared of yourself? The thing's truck drifted closer, inches from sideswiping me. I eased right, giving it room. It matched my movement, staying close. We could have fun with this, it continued. I could deliver your load to Flagstaff. You could go home, rest. No one would know. I'm a perfect copy. Mile marker 135, rest area in 1 mile. I could visit your apartment in Amarillo. Patricia from Dispatch, she likes you. Did you know that? I could ask her out, be charming. She'd never know. How did it know about Patricia? I had never said anything to anyone about focus, rest area, get off the highway. The sign appeared, rest area, 1 mile. I started drifting right toward the exit lane. The other truck matched me, staying parallel. You can't hide in a rest area, the voice said. I'll just wait. Maybe. But the old driver said to get somewhere lit with people. The rest area was lit, and maybe, if I was lucky, there'd be other people there. The exit ramp came up. I took it, braking smoothly, watching my mirrors. The other truck stayed on the highway, passing the exit, its taillights disappearing west. I pulled into the rest area, parked as close to the restroom building as possible, under the brightest lights. There were 2 other vehicles present, an RV in the overnight parking and a sedan near the building. I killed the engine, sat there breathing hard. My hands were shaking. The CB crackled. You're just delaying the inevitable. I'll be in Gallup when you get there. I'll be in Flagstaff tomorrow. Eventually, you'll have to sleep. I grabbed my phone, thought about calling 911 and saying what? That I was being followed by myself? That something was impersonating me over the CB radio? Instead, I called dispatch. Night shift supervisor, guy named Tom I'd worked with for years. Derek, you okay? You're not due to check in for another 2 hours. Tom, I need you to do something for me. Pull up the GPS tracking on my truck. Hold on. Heard keyboard clicking. Okay, got it. Shows you stop at the westbound rest area. Mile marker 134. Everything alright? Yeah. Now check the last 3 hours. Where does it show me? More clicking. Normal route. Left Amarillo at 14:15. Crossed New Mexico state line at 18:42. Cleared Tucumcari at 19:28. Fueled at Moriarty at 2000 hours. Back on I-40 at 21:10. Why? GPS shows 1 truck, right? 1 signal. Yeah, just yours. Derek, what's going on? I watched the highway through my windshield. Occasional traffic passing, but no white Freightliners. If I tell you I've got someone impersonating me on the CB using my truck number, would you believe me? CB trolls? Yeah, happens sometimes. Just change channels. It's more than that, Tom. You want me to send roadside assistance? You feeling okay to drive? I considered that. What was I going to tell him? No, I'm good. Just keep an eye on the GPS. If you see anything weird, call me immediately. Will do. Be safe out there. I ended the call, sat in my truck under the lights. The restroom building was concrete block, painted tan, with bright LED fixtures washing everything in white light. A young couple emerged from the building, walked to the sedan, drove off. That left just me in the RV. I needed to think this through logically. What were the facts? 1. Someone or something was using my voice on the CB and claiming to be my truck. 2. It knew details about my life it shouldn't know. 3. Another driver claimed to see a truck matching mine, moving at impossible speeds. 4. I'd seen what looked like my truck, with something wearing my face, driving it. 5. The truck had physical presence, it displaced air, had weight, could pace me on the highway. But 6. GPS tracking showed only one truck, mine. If there was another physical truck out there with my number, it would need its own transponder, its own tracking system. There was no second signal. So either the other truck wasn't real in a way that registers on GPS, or I didn't want to finish that thought. The CB had been quiet since I pulled off. I switched it off completely, pulled the power cord, whatever that thing was. I wasn't giving it another avenue to communicate. I had two choices. I could sit here until sunrise, lose time on my delivery window, but stay safe. Or I could run the last 70 miles to Gallup, stick to populated areas, hope the thing lost interest. My 14-hour clock had 4 hours left. If I sat here for 6 hours until dawn, I'd violate hours of service. That was a personal conviction violation, could affect my CSA score, possibly get me put out of service. But if I kept driving and something happened, a tapping sound on my driver's side window made me jump so hard I hit my head on the roof. It was the RV owner, older woman, maybe 70, wearing a turquoise jacket. She made a rolling motion with her hand. I cracked the window 2 inches. Sorry to bother you, honey, but are you all right? You've been sitting here a while. Yeah, just taking a break. She studied my face with sharp eyes. You look rattled. I've been traveling these roads for 40 years with my husband. God rest him. I know that look. What did you see? I shouldn't have said anything, but something about her, the directness, made me answer. Something that looked like me, driving a truck like mine. She didn't laugh, didn't look skeptical, just nodded slowly. You're heading west? Yeah, Gallup. Don't stop in Gallup. Drive straight through to the Arizona line. There's a truck stop right over the border. Big place, always busy. Get there, park somewhere with lots of people around, and wait for sunrise. That's another 100 miles. I'll run out of hours. Better to run out of hours than run into yourself in an empty parking lot. She glanced west, toward the highway. This area, especially at night, things happen. Things that don't make sense. My husband saw something on this stretch back in '94. Wouldn't talk about it much, but he never drove at night through here again if he could help it. What did he see? A truck that shouldn't exist, carrying a driver who died 3 years earlier, passed him doing 90, and he recognized the driver's face clear as day. She met my eyes. You've got something following you. Don't give it a chance to get ahead of you. Don't give it time to set up and gallop. Just drive through and get to Arizona. She walked back to her RV without waiting for a response. I sat there another 10 minutes, weighing options. Finally, I restarted the truck, checked my mirrors, pulled back onto the interstate. The highway was emptier now, past 2200 hours. Occasional car, a couple of other trucks in the distance. I pushed my speed to 75, the governor limit, wanting to cover ground fast. Mile marker 123, 117, 109. No sign of the other truck. My CB was still powered off, my phone on the dash within easy reach. GPS showed my position, updating normally. Everything was routine except for the adrenaline keeping me wired tight. The exit for Laguna Pueblo came and went. Then Mesita at mile marker 99. I saw the lights of Grants ahead, the last real town before Gallup. That's when I saw it parked on the shoulder. A white Freightliner Cascadia, flashers on, pulled onto the right shoulder with the hood raised, a classic breakdown position, and it had my truck number on the door. I kept my speed steady, moved to the left lane to give it room as I passed, caught a glimpse of someone standing at the front of the truck, looking at the engine, wearing a dark blue jacket. My jacket. It raised one hand, waving for help. I kept driving. In my mirror, I watched it watch me pass. Then it lowered the hood, moved with wrong fluidity, and climbed back into the cab. The flashers went off. The truck pulled onto the highway behind me. Shit, I said aloud. It was coming up fast again. Closing distance. I maxed my governor, 75 mph, and it wasn't enough. The thing gained on me like I was standing still. It pulled alongside again, left lane, matching my speed. I didn't look over, kept my eyes locked forward. Derek. The voice came from my phone this time, my own voice coming from my phone's speaker, even though I wasn't on a call. You're being rude. I just needed a jump start. I grabbed the phone, powered it off. The voice continued from the CB, even though the CB was unplugged and powered down. You can't shut me out. I'm already in. I know your route, your schedule, your entire life. I've been watching for weeks. Weeks? Every time you drove through here, I got a little closer, learned a little more. Now I'm ready. Tonight, I become you. And you become unnecessary. The other truck drifted right toward me. I had nowhere to go. Concrete barrier on my right, the other truck on my left. Pull over and let's discuss this like adults, it said, and laughed with my voice. Up ahead, I saw lights. The exit for Grants, services, truck stops. I started braking, dropping speed, positioning for the exit. The other truck matched my deceleration, staying alongside, boxing me in. The exit ramp was coming up fast. At the last possible second, I cranked the wheel right, cutting across the gore point, taking the exit at too much speed. My trailer slewed, left tires, howling, but the tandems held. The other truck tried to follow but overshot, locked its brakes, jackknifed across 2 lanes of I-40 inches, a screech of rubber and metal. I didn't look back. Took the exit, ran the stop sign at the bottom, pulled into the Flying J truck stop, and parked under the brightest lights I could find, right in front of the main entrance where people were coming and going. I sat there, engine running, watching my mirrors. Nothing followed me off the highway. After 20 minutes, I finally allowed myself to believe it had worked. I had lost it, at least temporarily. I went inside, bought coffee I didn't need, talked to the clerk about nothing important, just to hear a normal conversation. When I came back out, I did a complete walk around of my truck, checking every detail, making sure it was really mine. Everything checked out. Real truck, real load, real life. I couldn't stay in Grants. My delivery window was tight. But I followed the old woman's advice. I drove straight through Gallup without stopping, pushed onto the Arizona line, and parked at the first truck stop over the border. The sun was coming up as I shut down. I'd burned my entire 14-hour clock, but I'd made it out of New Mexico, and I didn't see the other truck again. I still run freight, still drive I-40, but I don't drive it at night anymore, not through New Mexico. I'll sit at a truck stop until dawn if I have to, lose time on my schedule, whatever it takes. Because that night taught me something. There are things out there that can copy you, not just imitate, actually become you. Detail perfect, down to your voice and face and mannerisms. And once they've got you alone in the dark, there's nothing stopping them from taking your place. To any truckers running the Southwest, especially through New Mexico, if you ever hear your own voice on the CB calling from a location you're not at, get to a populated area immediately. Don't try to logic it out. Don't investigate. And whatever you do, don't look directly at the thing driving the truck that looks like yours. Because once you acknowledge it, once you give it that recognition, it knows you've seen it. And that's when it stops playing and gets serious about taking what's yours. If you drive for a living, you've got stories from the road, the weird runs, the encounters you can't explain, the times you had to trust your gut over your GPS, share them in the comments. And if you want more accounts from drivers who've seen things that don't belong on the highway, hit that subscribe button. I share stories every week from people who make their living in motion. Crossing country, most folks only see at 70 miles per hour. Stay alert out there and watch your mirrors. Dr. Morrison had been dead for 16 hours. We'd found her body at dawn. Exposure and dehydration, the park ranger said. But at sunset, I watched her walk out of Pueblo Bonito's Great Kiva, barefoot, moving wrong, heading straight for our camp with something that wasn't quite her face. My name is Alex Brennan, field archaeologist with the University of New Mexico. I've been working southwestern sites for 9 years, the last 3 focused on Chaco Canyon. If you know anything about American archaeology, you know Chaco massive pueblo complexes built by ancestral Puebloans between 850 and 1150 AD. Astronomical alignments, sophisticated engineering, all sitting in the high desert of northwestern New Mexico, surrounded by nothing but sagebrush and sandstone for miles. This was our 3rd season, excavating a small outlier site about 2 miles northwest of Pueblo Bonito, the main complex. Our team was small, just 5 of us. Dr. Jennifer Morrison was our principal investigator, a specialist in Chaco and ceramics with 20 years experience. Myself as field supervisor. 2 graduate students, Carlos Gutierrez and Sarah Chen. And our site photographer, Tommy Begay, a Navajo guy from Nagezi who'd worked Chaco sites for a decade. We'd been on site for 6 weeks, living in tents at the official campground, working dawn to dusk on our excavation units. Standard procedure, we'd flag in a grid, establish a datum point, excavate in 10-centimeter levels, screen every bucket of soil, photograph and map every feature. Slow, methodical work, the way it should be done. Dr. Morrison was meticulous, sometimes to a fault. She'd stay at the site after the rest of us called it a day, photographing profiles in the fading light, taking extra measurements, updating field notes. We'd warned her repeatedly not to work alone, park service rules, basic safety protocol, but she'd wave us off, saying she just needed another 20 minutes. That Tuesday in October 2024, she did it again. We'd packed up around 5 p.m., loaded our gear into the university's F-250, ready to head back to camp. Dr. Morrison was still at Unit 7, sketching a floor feature we'd exposed that afternoon. Jenny, we need to go, I called to her, lights fading. 10 more minutes, I want to get this profile drawn before tomorrow. Carlos looked at me. I shook my head. This was a regular argument. We'll go ahead, I said. But you've got your radio, and you're coming straight back, right? She didn't even look up from her sketch. Yes, Dad, I'll be fine. We left her there. That decision still sits heavy on me. Back at camp, we cleaned tools, sorted artifacts, started dinner. By 6:30, with full dark settling over the canyon, Dr. Morrison still hadn't returned. I tried her radio, no response. Tried her cell straight to voicemail. By 7, we were genuinely worried. I called the park dispatch, reported her overdue. Rangers arrived by 7:45, and we organized a search. 4 rangers, the 4 of us, from the dig crew, all with flashlights and radios, spreading out from the excavation site. Tommy found her just before midnight. She was 3/4 of a mile northwest of our site, in a shallow arroyo, lying on her side like she'd simply laid down to rest. No visible trauma, no signs of struggle. Her day pack was gone, along with her water bottles. Her boots were missing. She'd walked out there in her socks, through cactus and stone. The rangers said it looked like disorientation from heat exposure, possibly dehydration leading to confusion. She'd wandered away from the site, gotten turned around in the terrain, collapsed. Temperatures had been in the low 90s that afternoon, hot for October, and if she'd run out of water, become confused. It happens sometimes in the backcountry. People made bad decisions when their core temperature rose, when dehydration set in. They took off clothes, wandered away from safety, succumbed to elements that wouldn't normally kill them. We recovered her body, waited for the medical examiner to arrive from Farmington. By the time they transported her out, it was almost 4 a.m. None of us slept. We sat around the camp, drinking coffee, not talking much, trying to process the fact that our PI, our colleague, was dead because we'd let her stay on site alone. The park superintendent arrived at 8 a.m., along with a detective from San Juan County Sheriff's Office. Standard procedure for an unattended death on federal land. They interviewed each of us separately. Where had we last seen her? What was her mental state? Had she mentioned feeling ill? Did she have any medical conditions we knew about? I told them everything I could. Dr. Morrison had seemed normal, focused on work, no indication she was struggling physically or mentally. She'd had plenty of water with her when we left. She knew the terrain. It didn't make sense that she'd wander off like that. The detective was polite but non-committal. Heat exposure makes people do strange things. We'll wait for the ME's report, but right now it looks like a tragic accident. By noon, they released us to go back to camp. The university had already been notified. They were sending someone to take over as PI. But in the meantime, we were to secure the site, inventory all artifacts and equipment, and suspend field work until further notice. We drove back to the excavation area in heavy silence. The site looked like we'd left it units covered with tarps, equipment staged under a pop-up canopy, flags marking our grid squares. Doctor. Morrison's field notebook was still sitting on the folding table, where she'd left it open to her last entry. I don't want to be here, Sarah said, quietly. She was 24, her first real field season, and finding your PI dead was not how anyone imagined their graduate career starting. We just need to secure everything, I said. Canvass all the units, lock the tools in the truck, photograph the site as is. 2 hours, then we're done. Tommy was standing at the edge of our excavation area, looking northwest toward where Dr. Morrison had been found. His expression was troubled. You okay? I asked. This area, he said slowly. My grandfather told me stories about this area. Said it was a bad place after dark. Said things walk here that shouldn't. Tommy, I know what the ranger said. Heat exposure, dehydration. But I've worked backcountry my whole life, Alex. I've seen people get disoriented from heat. They don't walk 3/4 of a mile in a straight line away from safety. They circle. They stagger. They don't take their boots off and keep walking. What are you saying? He met my eyes. I'm saying maybe something led her out there. Maybe something that looked like someone she'd follow. I stopped myself. Tommy wasn't prone to superstition. He was one of the most practical people I knew. If he was suggesting something, he had a reason. Just keep your eyes open tonight, he said. Don't go anywhere alone. And if you see Dr. Morrison walking around camp, don't assume your mind is playing tricks on you. That should have sounded crazy. Instead, it sounded like a warning I should take seriously. We worked through the afternoon, documenting everything, securing the site. By 5 p.m., we were loading the last tools when Carlos pointed toward Pueblo Bonito, visible about 2 miles southeast. Is someone over there? I looked. Against the dark stone of the ruins, I could see a figure standing near the entrance to the Great Kiva. Small, lean build, blonde hair. Dr. Morrison's build. Dr. Morrison's hair. That's not possible. Sarah whispered. I grabbed the binoculars from the truck, focused on the figure. Through the lenses, I could see details: khaki field pants, blue long sleeve shirt, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Doctor Morrison's field uniform, but the face was wrong. The proportions weren't quite right. The eyes were too far apart, the mouth too wide, and the way she stood too still. Weight distributed wrong, like someone balancing on stilts. That's not her, Tommy said from beside me. He was staring at the figure without binoculars. That's something wearing her. As we watched, the figure started walking, not toward us, but along the wall of Pueblo Bonito, moving with a strange gait, two smooth feet not quite articulating right. It reached the corner of the structure and disappeared from view. Pack up, I said. Right now. We're leaving. Alex, Carlos started. Now, everyone in the truck. We threw the remaining gear in the bed, climbed into the cab. I started the engine, turned us around, headed for the main road. In my rear view mirror, I could see the figure had reappeared, now standing in the middle of the access road behind us, watching us leave. It's following us, Sarah said, voice shaking. We're in a truck. It can't. The figure started running, not jogging, sprinting, moving faster than any human should move, especially across rough terrain and failing light. It was closing the distance. I pushed the accelerator down. The F-250 lunged forward, hitting 40 mph on the dirt access road. Too fast for safety, but I didn't care. Behind us, the figure kept pace for maybe 200 yards, then suddenly veered off the road and disappeared into the sagebrush. What the hell was that? Carlos demanded. Not Jenny, Tommy said quietly. Something that wants us to think it's Jenny. We reached the main park road, turned toward the campground, past the visitor center, the ranger station, the maintenance yard. Normal park infrastructure, reassuring in its ordinariness. By the time we pulled into the campground, I was starting to second guess what we'd seen. Heat distortion, stress-induced hallucination, shared grief making us see things that weren't there, except all four of us had seen the same thing. We set up for the night in the campground, pulling our tents close together, building a fire even though it wasn't particularly cold. The campground host, an older guy named Walt, who spent winters here in his RV, came by around 7. Heard you folks lost your team leader. Sorry for your loss. Thanks, I said. It's been a rough day. Ranger said she wandered off, got turned around. That's what they think. Walt nodded slowly. This place, it gets in people's heads sometimes. The old sites, they've got weight to them. History. And not all of it's peaceful. He glanced around the empty campground. We were the only people camping. You folks be careful tonight. Lock your vehicle. Keep your food put away. Stay together. We will. He started to leave, then turned back. If you see people walking around the ruins after dark, especially near the Great Kiva, don't approach them. Call the rangers. Let them handle it. People aren't supposed to be in the ruins after dark, are they? No, but that doesn't stop certain things from walking through them. After he left, we sat around the fire, not saying much. Sarah kept checking her phone, no service, as usual. Carlos stared into the flames. Tommy whittled a piece of wood with his pocket knife, working by feel more than sight. My grandfather told me a story once, Tommy said after a long silence, about archaeologists who came to Chaco in the 60s. They excavated a burial, didn't follow proper protocols, didn't get permission from the descendant communities. One of them started seeing his dead partner walking around the site, followed the vision one night, out into the backcountry. They found him 3 days later, dehydrated, talking about how his friend had showed him something important, something he needed to see. What did he see? Sarah asked. Nothing. There was nothing out there, but he insisted his friend had led him to it. showed it to him, and then left him there. You think that's what happened to Dr. Morrison? Carlos asked. Something lured her out there? I think we need to be very careful about what we assume is real, Tommy said. Around 10 p.m., we retired to our tents. I shared mine with Carlos. Sarah had her own. Tommy had his. We kept the rain flies open despite the cold, wanting to maintain visibility. I was almost asleep when I heard the voice. Alex, can you help me with something? Dr. Morrison's voice, coming from outside my tent. I sat up slowly, looked through the mesh. In the faint light from the dying campfire, I could see a figure standing about 20 feet away. Same build, same hair, same posture as Dr. Morrison. Alex, I need help carrying some equipment. Just for a minute. Carlos was awake now, staring at the figure. That's not possible, he whispered. I know my way around, even in the dark, the voice continued. It won't take long. I just need an extra pair of hands. The way it talked, too formal, too careful, like someone reading from a script. Dr. Morrison had been casual, used contractions, had a slight Oklahoma accent. This voice had none of that. Tommy, I called softly. You awake? Yeah. His voice came from his tent, tense. Don't go out there. I wasn't planning to. The figure took a step closer to my tent. In the better light, I could see its face. It was Dr. Morrison's face, but wrong. The features were right, but the expression was off, too blank, too empty. And the eyes didn't blink. Alex, please, I need your help. It's important. Dr. Morrison died last night, I said clearly. You're not her. The figure tilted its head at an unnatural angle, like a bird studying prey. Of course I'm her. Who else would I be? You tell me. The smile that crossed his face was terrible, too wide, too many teeth showing, pulling the skin too tight. You're smarter than she was. She followed easily. My blood went cold. You led her out there. She was alone. She came when called, very trusting. The thing that looked like Doctor. Morrison took another step forward. You could come too. I could show you what I showed her. The things she saw before she stopped seeing. Get away from our camp, Tommy called out. The thing's head rotated toward Tommy's tent, neck articulating wrong. You know what I am. Your people have stories. I know enough not to follow you, even if I wear someone you trust, someone you love. The thing's form blurred for a moment, and suddenly it looked like Tommy. Same build, same features, same clothing. Even if I'm your grandfather calling you to him, my grandfather would never call me into the dark, Tommy said, voice steady. He taught me better than that. The thing shifted again, became a young woman I didn't recognize, then an older man, then Dr. Morrison again. I have many faces. Eventually I'll find the right one, the one you can't resist. Sarah, Carlos, you seeing this? I asked. Yeah, Sarah said from her tent, voice shaking. Everyone stay in your tents. Don't go outside no matter what you see or hear. The thing laughed, not Dr. Morrison's laugh. Something else. Something that sounded like wind through a canyon. You'll have to leave eventually. Your water will run out. Your food. Or maybe I'll find someone else walking alone, and you'll hear them calling for help. Will you stay in your tents then? It turned and walked toward the campground entrance, moving with that too smooth gait. At the edge of the firelight, it stopped and looked back. I'll be waiting. When you leave, when you come back. I'm very patient. Then it was gone, disappearing into the darkness beyond the campground. None of us slept. We sat in our tents, watching the darkness, jumping at every sound. Once, around 2 a.m., we heard footsteps circling the camp, but nothing appeared in the firelight. At dawn, Walt, the campground host, drove by, stopped when he saw us all sitting outside our tents. You folks look rough. Bad night. Something was in the camp last night, I said. Looked like our colleague who died. Tried to get us to follow it. Walt's expression didn't change. Yeah, that happens sometimes. You did right staying put. He glanced around the empty campground. You planning to leave today? Soon as we can pack up. Good. Do it in daylight. Stay together. Drive straight to the park entrance. Don't stop for anything on the road. What is it? Sarah asked. That thing? Walt was quiet for a moment. Park Service calls them trespassers, tells us to report them to dispatch. But I've been wintering here for 15 years. I've seen things. Things that wear faces that aren't theirs. He started his truck. Just get out before dark. Whatever you do, be off Chaco Land before sunset. We packed in record time, stuffing gear into bags without any organization, just wanting to be mobile. By 8 a.m., we were loaded and driving toward the exit. As we passed Pueblo Bonito, I saw a figure standing near the Great Kiva, same blonde hair, same blue shirt, watching us leave. Even from a distance, I could see it smile. We drove straight through to Albuquerque. 3 hours, no stops. At the university, we reported what happened carefully, professionally, framing it as possible grief-induced hallucinations combined with exhaustion. The dig was officially suspended. Another team went out 2 weeks later to fully secure the site, remove all equipment. They reported no unusual incidents, but they worked entirely during daylight hours and left before 4 p.m. each day. Dr. Morrison's death was ruled accidental exposure and dehydration. The ME found no evidence of foul play, no toxicology concerns, nothing to suggest anything other than a tragic mistake. But I know what I saw. So does Tommy, Carlos, and Sarah. Something in Chaco Canyon can wear a face that isn't its own. It can mimic voices, mannerisms, even personal details. And it uses that ability to lure people away from safety out into the darkness where they stop asking questions and start following. Dr. Morrison wasn't the first person to die out there under mysterious circumstances. She won't be the last. If you ever work Chaco Canyon, whether as a researcher, a ranger, or just a visitor, respect the rules. Don't go into the ruins after dark. Don't approach people who appear in places they shouldn't be. And if someone you know who died yesterday shows up and asks you to follow them, no matter how real they look, how perfect the mimicry, stay in the light, stay with others, and don't follow. The H2S monitor screamed at 4 a.m. Hydrogen sulfide levels critical across the entire pad site. But when I cleared the blast zone and looked back, nothing was leaking, just something tall and wrong wearing Terry's fire suit, standing in the flare light where no one could survive the heat. My name is Jake Mercado, and I'm a health, safety, and environment coordinator for Apex Energy Solutions. We work the Permian Basin, mostly New Mexico side, running completion operations on unconventional wells. If you don't know oil field work, here's the short version. We drill down 2 miles, turn horizontal, fracture the rock with high pressure fluid, and extract oil and gas. It's technical work, dangerous work, and it pays well because of both. I've been in the oil patch for 12 years, the last 5 in HSE. My job is to keep people alive, monitor gas levels, enforce safety protocols, shut down operations when conditions get hazardous. I carry a 4-gas monitor that checks for hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, oxygen levels, and lower explosive limits. When that monitor alarms, everyone clears the area, no exceptions. This incident happened on a pad site 43 miles southeast of Carlsbad, New Mexico. We were running a completion crew on a 6-well pad, meaning 6 wellheads clustered on one location, all being fractured and flowed back simultaneously. Big operation, 37 people on site, working 12-hour shifts around the clock. The area is high desert, flat and empty for miles. Nearest town is Loving, population 74. We were camped in company RVs about half a mile from the pad site, close enough for quick response, far enough for safety margins. Cell service was spotty. Radio was primary communication. Our crew had been on location for 3 weeks, and everything had run smooth. Good team, experienced hands, no incidents. The company man was a guy named Terry Voss, 48 years old, been in the patch since he was 19, knew his job inside and out. Terry and I worked closely together. He trusted my safety calls. I trusted his operational judgment. That Tuesday night in November 2024, we were flowing back well 4. The well had been fractured 3 days earlier and was now producing oil, gas, and flowback water. Normal operations. I was doing my midnight walkthrough, checking gas monitors at designated stations around the pad. The pad site was lit up like daylight, big light towers running off generators, flare stack burning off gas with a roar you could feel in your chest. The air smelled like sulfur and crude oil, familiar scents I'd lived with for years. At Station 7, near the separator tanks, my personal monitor started chirping. H2S reading at 8 parts per million below the action level of 10 ppm, but trending up. I radioed the control shack. Control, this is Jake. I've got H2S at 8 ppm near the separators, requesting additional monitoring. Copy that, Jake. Terry's headed your way with the backup monitor. 5 minutes later, Terry showed up in his FRC flame-resistant coveralls and his hard hat carrying the handheld gas monitor. We checked multiple points around the separator. Readings were consistent at 7 to 8 ppm, elevated but not critical. Probably just normal well production, Terry said. These wells are running hot. A lot of sour gas in the formation. Yeah, but let's stay on it. If it hits 10, we need to clear non-essential personnel. Agreed. I'll have the operator throttle back on well 4, see if that helps. Terry headed back to the control shack. I continued my rounds, checking the other stations. Everything else read normal. At 0330 hours, I was near the water tanks on the east side of the pad when my monitor went into full alarm, all 4 sensors maxed out. H2, S over 100 ppm, LEL at 40%, carbon monoxide spiking, critical levels across the board. I keyed my radio immediately. All personnel, this is HSE. We have a major gas release, east side of location. Emergency evacuation protocols in effect. Clear the pad site to the muster point. I repeat, clear the pad site now. I was already moving toward my truck, a white F-250 with HSE markings, parked at the access road. Behind me, I could hear the evacuation alarm trigger loud horns cutting through the night, red stroking lights activating across the pad. Personnel started clearing from various work areas, moving quickly but not panicking. Good crew. They knew the drill. I reached my truck, drove to the muster point 200 yards downwind from the pad, started doing head counts as people arrived. The whole crew should have been 37, total 22 on the pad for night shift, 15 in the RV camp on their off hours. We got to 36. Terry was missing. Anyone have eyes on Terry? I called out. He was in the control shack last I saw him. One of the operators, a guy named Luis, shook his head. He left the shack about 10 minutes ago, said he was going to check the flare stack. Haven't seen him since. The flare stack was on the west side of the pad, opposite from where my monitor had alarmed. If there was a major gas release on the east side, Terry should have heard the evacuation alarm and cleared with everyone else. Unless he was incapacitated, H2S at high concentrations knocked you down fast, 1 or 2 breaths, and you were unconscious. Luis, you're acting site supervisor. Keep everyone at the muster point. I'm going back in with SCBA to find Terry. Jake, if the gas levels are that high, I know, that's why I'm using air. I pulled the self-contained breathing apparatus from my truck, checked the pressure gauge, full bottle, 30 minutes of air. Strapped it on, pulled the face mask tight, activated my personal locator beacon. The pad site was still lit up, but it felt different now. Empty, alien. The equipment running, unattended. The flare stack roared overhead, burning off gas in a column of orange flame 30 feet high. The heat was intense, even from 50 yards away. My gas monitor was still maxed out, alarms screaming. But as I moved closer to the separators where the release should have originated, The readings started dropping. 70 ppm, 50, 30. That didn't make sense. If we had a major release, the levels should be consistent across the area, should be building, not dissipating as fast. At the separator tanks, I found nothing. No visible leak, no failed connections, no damaged equipment. Everything was sealed and functioning normally. The H2S levels here were actually lower than they'd been on my earlier check 5 ppm. False alarm, equipment malfunction, but my monitor had 4 separate sensors, all calibrated and bump tested daily. The odds of all 4 failing simultaneously in a way that mimicked a major release were astronomical. I keyed my radio. Control Shack, this is Jake. I'm not finding any source for the gas release. Readings are normal across the east side. Can you confirm any process upsets? No response. Control, do you copy? Static then. Jake, this is Terry. I'm at the flare stack. I need you to come here. I found something. Terry's voice, clear and calm, but something felt wrong about it. The phrasing was too formal, the tone too flat. Terry, what's your status? Are you injured? No, but I found something you need to see. At the base of the flare stack. Terry, we have an evacuation in progress. You need to clear to the muster point. This can't wait. You need to see this now. I started moving toward the flare stack, scanning for Terry's location. The stack was 100 feet tall, the flare at the top burning at around 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. The radiant heat made it impossible to approach within 50 feet. That's when I saw him. Terry was standing directly under the flare, maybe 20 feet from the base of the stack. He was wearing his fire suit, the aluminized proximity gear we use for emergency responses near fire. But even with that protection, you couldn't stand that close to an active flare. The heat would cook you through the suit. Terry, back away from the flare. You're too close. He didn't move, just stood there, face shield reflecting the orange light. Terry, respond. Are you okay? The figure turned toward me. Slowly, joints moving wrong like a marionette on strings. Come closer, Jake. I want to show you what I found. That wasn't Terry's voice anymore. It was close, but the inflection was off, the accent slightly wrong. Terry had a West Texas drawl. This voice had no accent at all. Identify yourself, I said, hand moving to the emergency radio on my chest. The figure tilted its head. I'm Terry. You know me. We've worked together for months. Terry wouldn't stand under an active flare. I'm protected. See? It gestured at the fire suit. The suit keeps me safe. No suit could protect against that heat at that distance. I had seen thermal imaging of flare stacks during my training. The ground temperature directly under a flare was over 500 degrees. Terry should have been on fire. The thing wearing Terry's fire suit took a step toward me. In the flare light, I could see details through the face shield. The features were right, Terry's weathered face, his gray beard, his blue eyes, but the expression was wrong, too blank, and the eyes didn't track right, didn't focus on me so much as through me. Something's wrong with you, I said, backing away slowly. Nothing's wrong. I just need you to come closer. There's something in the flare you need to see. There's nothing in a flare except fire. Oh, but there is so much more. The heat opens things, Jake. Opens doors. I can show you. My training was screaming at me to clear the area, get back to the muster point, account for the real Terry, but I needed to understand what I was looking at. If you're Terry, tell me what, well, we're flowing back. The figure stopped advancing. Well, 4. What's my truck number? HSE1. What did we have for lunch yesterday? Pause. Longer than it should be. Sandwiches. Wrong. We didn't eat together yesterday. You worked day shift. I worked nights. The thing's face shifted, features blurring for just a second before settling back into Terry's appearance. You're cleverer than most. They usually follow right away. What are you? I'm what lives in the heat. In the places where Earth breaks open and bleeds, I'm old, older than your wells, older than your industry. I was here before, when this was all ocean. I'll be here after. The figure started walking toward me again, but its gait had changed. No longer trying to mimic human movement, now it moved smoothly, too smoothly, gliding more than walking. The fire suit rippled like it wasn't quite solid. Where's the real Terry? I demanded. Safe, sleeping. I borrowed his shape, his voice. I needed something you'd trust, something that would bring you close enough. Close enough for what? To show you what's in the flare, what's waiting in the heat. I keyed my emergency radio. All personnel, this is Jake. I have a hostile entity on the pad site, west side, near the flare stack. Do not approach. I repeat, do not approach. The thing laughed. Not Terry's laugh. Something else. Something that sounded like metal scraping stone. They can't hear you. I've made sure of that. It's just us now, Jake. You and me, and the fire. It was closing distance. 15 feet away now. I could see through the face shield more clearly. What I'd thought was Terry's face was actually something else. Something wearing Terry's features, like a mask. The edges didn't quite line up. I backed toward my truck, keeping the thing in sight. My SCBA had 15 minutes of air left, more than enough to get clear. You can't run from me, it said. I can follow. I can wear other faces. Your coworkers, your family. Eventually you'll trust one of them. Maybe, but not tonight. I reached my truck, climbed in, locked the doors, started the engine, and put it in reverse, backing away from the pad site. The thing stood in the flare light, watching me go. Then it did something I'll never forget. It reached up and pulled off the fire suit like it was shedding skin. Underneath wasn't Terry, wasn't human at all, just a dark shape, tall and wrong, that reflected no light except from its eyes, which burned orange like the flare. It raised one long arm in what might have been a wave. Then it turned and walked into the base of the flare stack, into heat that should have incinerated it instantly, and vanished. I drove back to the muster point, hands shaking on the wheel. The crew was waiting, everyone accounted for, except Terry. Luis approached my truck as I pulled up. Jake, we've got Terry. He was asleep in his RV the whole time. Said he went off shift at midnight, crashed hard, didn't hear the evacuation alarm. Check him, I said. Make sure it's really him. What? Ask him personal questions. Verify his identity. Luis gave me a strange look, but went to Terry's RV. I watched through my truck window as they talked. Terry was wearing sweats and a t-shirt, hair mess from sleep, looking confused and annoyed at being woken up. Luis came back. He's legit, Jake. New details only Terry would know. What's going on? I told him what I'd seen. The false gas alarm. The thing at the flare stack wearing Terry's fire suit. The entity that claimed to live in the heat. To their credit, no one called me crazy. We worked in a dangerous industry in a remote place. Strange things happened. Equipment failed in impossible ways. People saw things that didn't make sense. We spent the next 2 hours checking every system, every monitor, every piece of equipment. Found nothing wrong. The gas release that had triggered my alarms had left no trace, no leak points, no process upsets, no explanation. At dawn, the company shut down the operation pending a full investigation. Brought in specialists from Midland, gas detection experts, even had an industrial psychologist interview the crew about stress and hallucinations. Their conclusion: equipment malfunction combined with fatigue-induced hallucination. My monitor had somehow malfunctioned in a way that mimicked a major release. I'd seen someone in a fire suit near the flare, misidentified them in the darkness and stress, built a narrative around that misidentification. Clean explanation, professional, reasonable. Except I knew what I'd seen. I knew what had spoken to me. And I knew Terry had been asleep in his RV the whole time, while something else wore his appearance and tried to lure me into the heat. The operation restarted 3 days later with a new HSE coordinator. I requested a transfer, got assigned to a different field entirely, up near Hobbs. I still worked the Permian Basin, but I turned down any assignments near that specific pad site. Terry still works there, says he's never seen anything unusual, never felt threatened, but sometimes he mentions that on certain nights, when the flare stack is burning hot and the crew is thin, he sees figures standing near the heat. He doesn't approach them anymore. For anyone working in the oil patch, especially in the Permian Basin, here's what I learned. Trust your gas monitors, but trust your instincts more. If someone you know appears in a place they shouldn't be, doing things they couldn't survive, verify their identity before approaching. Ask questions only they would know. Check details. And if something tries to lure you toward the heat, the flare stack, the separators, the wellhead when it's flowing hot, don't go. No matter whose voice is calling you, no matter whose face it wears, because there are things in those formations, things that came up with the oil and gas from deep time, from heat and pressure we can barely imagine, things that learned to wear our shapes, speak our words, use our trust against us. The industry doesn't talk about it. There's no line item for entity encounters in the safety manual, but ask the old timers, the guys who've worked remote locations for decades. They've got stories, encounters they can't explain, times when the equipment was fine, the readings were normal, but something was very, very wrong. Border Patrol training covers a lot: cartel tactics, desert survival, search protocols. What they don't cover is what to do when your partner's boot prints change from Danner to deer hooves mid-stride, while your partner's still walking next to you, asking why you stopped. I'm Agent Rachel Cordova, U.S. Border Patrol, assigned to the Lordsburg Station in southwestern New Mexico. I've been with the agency for 7 years, the last 4 working the Boot Heel region, that strange appendage of New Mexico that drops south between Arizona and the Texas Panhandle. It's rough country, remote as hell, and it keeps you sharp. Most people think Border Patrol only works the southern border with Mexico. That's the high traffic area, sure. But we also work the backcountry, the areas between ports of entry where smugglers and illegal crossers try to slip through. In the Boot Heel, you're dealing with Chihuahuan Desert, mountain ranges, and terrain that'll kill you if you're not prepared. My partner that December was Agent Kevin Sosi, transferred in from the Shiprock Station up north. Navajo guy, early 30s, former Army infantry with a deployment to Afghanistan. Solid agent, good tracker, didn't talk much but knew his job. We'd been partnered for 6 months and worked well together. This happened on a Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. We were running a patrol on the east side of the Animas Mountains, checking for sign tracks, trash, cut fence, anything indicating traffic through the area. Standard patrol, 2 agents in a 4-wheel drive Chevy Tahoe marked with Border Patrol livery. We left the station at 0600 hours, right at dawn. Temperature was 38 degrees, clear sky, light wind from the west. Perfect tracking conditions. The cold overnight had left the soil firm, and any prints would show clean. About 15 miles south of Highway 9, we picked up sign. Fresh tracks, multiple subjects heading north. Kevin got out to examine them while I provided overwatch with the radio and rifle. 4 individuals, Kevin called back. Adult males based on boot size and stride length, less than 6 hours old. They're moving fast, trying to make distance before daylight. Direction? Northeast, toward the highway. Probably have a pickup point arranged. Standard smuggling operation. Get across the border at night, hike north to a predetermined location, meet a vehicle, continue into the interior. Our job was to intercept them before they reached their ride. We followed the tracks, Kevin reading sign from the passenger seat, directing me along the route. The subjects were staying on hard pan where they could, avoiding soft soil, trying to minimize their trail. Smart tactics. But Kevin was better. They split up, he said after we'd gone 3 miles. 2 went northwest, 2 continued northeast. Classic counter-tracking. They're trying to confuse pursuit. Which group do we follow? Northeast pair. They're moving more purposefully. The other 2 are decoys, probably circling back to Mexico. We stayed on the northeast track. The subjects had crossed through a barbed wire fence, leaving boot prints and fabric snags on the wire. Kevin photographed the sign with his phone, uploaded it to the database. If we caught them, the evidence trail was documented. At mile marker 7 from our initial sign cut, Kevin told me to stop. He got out, knelt next to a print, studied it for a long moment. What do you got? I asked through the open window. Print sequence is wrong. He stood up, walked forward 20 feet, knelt again. Rachel, come look at this. I secured the vehicle, grabbed my rifle, a department-issued M4, and joined him. Kevin was pointing at a series of boot prints in sandy soil. Watch the progression, he said, indicating the trail. Subject is walking normally here. Standard Timberland-style boot, size 10, consistent stride. Then here, he pointed ahead, the print changes. I looked where he indicated. The boot print was replaced mid-stride by something else, something with cloven hooves. Deer? I asked, though I already knew it wasn't. Deer don't wear size 10 Timberlands 3 steps earlier. Kevin's voice was carefully neutral. And deer hooves don't show the same depth and pressure distribution as a 180-pound human. So, what are we looking at? Something that was walking on 2 legs like a human, then changed to walking on hooves, mid-stride, without breaking pace. I keyed my radio. Lordsburg Station. This is Unit 12. We're tracking subjects who... I paused, choosing words carefully. We've got anomalous sign. Request supervisor call. Unit 12, stand by. Kevin was following the hoofprints now, moving slowly, reading the trail. I maintained cover position, scanning the surrounding terrain. We were in open country. Visibility good for a quarter mile in all directions. Nothing visible but scrub and stone. Rachel. Kevin's voice had an edge to it. The print split. What do you mean split? The hoof prints continue northeast, and boot prints, same boot, same size, start again heading due north, like whatever was divided into 2 things. My radio crackled. Unit 12, this is Supervisor Martinez. What's your situation? Sir, we're 7 miles in on the track. We've got evidence of subjects, but the sign is inconsistent. Prints are changing from human to animal mid-trail. Long pause. Are you saying you've got mixed traffic, humans and livestock? Negative. I'm saying the same individuals. Prints are changing. Human boot to cloven hoof and back. Another pause. Longer. Unit 12. Photograph everything. Do not engage any subjects without backup. I'm sending Unit 7 to your location. Copy that. Kevin was standing 30 feet ahead, looking at something on the ground. His posture had changed, tense, alert, weapon hand near his sidearm. Kevin, what do you got? Blood. Not much, just drops. Leading northeast with the hoofprints. I approached carefully. The blood was fresh, dark red, scattered in irregular drops along the trail. Kevin was already photographing it. Human blood? I asked. Won't know until we test it, but the volume and distribution suggest wounded prey, not injured human. This is predator-prey behavior. Predator? Kevin looked at me. I grew up hearing stories about things that walk like men but aren't men. Things that hunt. My grandfather would have told us to turn back right here. We've got a job to do. I know. But we need to be smart about this. We continued following the trail, moving slower now, more tactically. I was on point with the rifle. Kevin slightly behind and to my left, tracking while maintaining security. The hoofprints continued for another 100 yards, then stopped completely, Not like the subject had walked onto hard ground, they just ended mid-stride in soft soil. One print, then nothing. This doesn't make sense, I said. None of it makes sense. But here's what I know. Something came across that border walking on two legs with four people. That something started changing, splitting, doing things that aren't possible. And now we're standing in the middle of nowhere, following a trail that ends in empty air. That's when we heard the voice. Help, please help. Male voice, American accent, coming from northwest of our position, maybe 200 yards out from a shallow arroyo. I keyed my radio. Unit 12. We have possible subject calling for assistance. Investigating. We approached the arroyo tactically, using available cover, weapons ready. The voice kept calling weak, desperate, convincing. Please, I'm hurt. I need help. Kevin held up his fist stop signal. I froze, scanned the area. What? I whispered. He pointed at the ground. Fresh boot prints leading toward the arroyo. Same timberland pattern we'd been following. But these prints were coming from behind us, from the direction of our vehicle. That's impossible, I said. We would have seen anyone approaching. Unless they didn't approach, unless they circled around while we were distracted by the trail. The voice called again. Help me, please. Kevin, I said slowly, look at those prints. He looked. The prints were walking normally toward the arroyo, standard human gait. Then, halfway to the wash, they changed. One boot print, one hoof print, one boot print, one hoof print, alternating, like something practicing how to walk on different legs. We need to leave, Kevin said. Right now, there might be someone actually hurt down there, and there might be something that wants us to think that. The voice changed slightly, became more urgent. Rachel, Kevin, I can see your vehicle. Please help. It knew our names. Back to the Tahoe, I said. Move. We retreated, maintaining security, watching all directions. The voice kept calling, sometimes desperate, sometimes angry, sometimes perfectly mimicking my own voice calling for Kevin. We were 50 yards from the vehicle when Kevin stopped abruptly. Why'd you stop? I asked, not taking my eyes off our surroundings. I didn't stop. You're still walking. I looked at him. He was 10 feet behind me, weapon raised, staring ahead. I looked forward. I was still walking toward the Tahoe, same uniform, same gear, same build. The other me had its hand on the driver's door handle. That's not possible, I said. I know. The thing that looked like me turned around. The face was right, my face, my features, my brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun. But the expression was wrong, too neutral, too empty. You should get in the vehicle, it said in my voice. We need to get back to the station. Step away from the vehicle, I ordered, raising my rifle. It tilted its head, studying us. You don't want to shoot yourself, Rachel. That would be very difficult to explain in the report. Devin keyed his radio. Unit 12 to any unit. We have a hostile contact at our location. Code word Echo Victor Alpha. EAA, Extreme Unusual Activity. The code we used when something didn't fit any standard category. The thing wearing my face smiled. They can't hear you. I've made sure of that. What are you? I demanded. I'm you, or I will be, soon. I've been following you for weeks, learning, practicing, your voice, your walk, your mannerisms. Tonight I'm finally ready. Tonight I take your place. And you stay out here. It opened the driver's door, started to get in. I fired a 3-round burst into the engine block. The Tahoe's hood jumped as rounds punched through metal. The engine hissed and died. The thing looked at me, still wearing my face. That was unnecessary. Step away from the vehicle. It complied, moving with that too smooth gait. You've made this more difficult. Now I'll have to walk back to the station. But that's fine. I'll arrive tired, shaken, explaining how my partner attacked me, how I barely escaped, they'll believe me. I'm you, after all. Kevin fired twice, center mass. The rounds hit the thing squarely. It staggered back but didn't fall, didn't bleed. Bullets won't work, it said. I'm not really here. Not in the way you understand. I'm a reflection, a projection, a memory of you that wants to become real. Skinwalker, Kevin said quietly. My face went cold. Don't speak that word. You know better, Sosie. You can't have her. Traditional protections still work. Salt, sage, turquoise. She's wearing turquoise earrings right now. The thing's eyes flicked to my ears. I was indeed wearing turquoise studs, a gift from my grandmother. Clever, it hissed. But there are others. Other agents. Other faces I can wear. You can't protect everyone. Behind the thing, I saw Unit 7 approaching Agent Wilson and Agent Pack in their Tahoe, coming up the access road with lights on. The thing that looked like me turned, saw them coming, and its form started to blur. The edges became indistinct, the features shifting rapidly, my face, then Wilson's face, then Pack's, then something else entirely, something with too many teeth. This isn't over, it said in a voice that was no longer human. I'll find you again when you're alone, when you're vulnerable, when you've forgotten to wear protection. It stepped sideways and simply ceased to exist. Not running, not hiding, just gone, like switching off a light. Kevin and I stood there, weapons raised, scanning for threats until Unit 7 pulled up. Wilson got out, took one look at our faces, the damaged Tahoe, and the empty desert around us. What happened? We told them everything. The changing prints, the voice calling for help, the thing that wore my face. To their credit, they didn't laugh or suggest we'd lost it. This is the third report this month from the Boot Heel region, Wilson said quietly. Command's been keeping it quiet, but agents have been seeing things, tracks that don't make sense, voices calling from empty desert, things that look like people but aren't. Why didn't they tell us, I asked. Because there's no protocol for it, no way to report it officially without sounding crazy. So they just warn people to work in pairs, stay alert, get off the land at dark. We were extracted back to the station, where we spent 6 hours being debriefed. Our Tahoe was towed in, logged as mechanical failure. The photographs Kevin had taken showed the boot to hoof transition clearly, but Command filed them under evidence requiring further analysis and locked them away. I was offered trauma counseling. I declined. I wasn't traumatized. I was educated. Kevin and I still work together, still patrol the Boot Heel, but we follow new rules now. We wear traditional protections, turquoise, sage bundles in our pockets, salt in our patrol bags. We don't respond to calls for help unless we can verify the source. We don't follow tracks that change mid-stride, and we never, ever work alone after dark. For anyone working law enforcement in the Southwest, especially in remote areas near reservation land, trust your instincts. If tracks don't make sense, if voices call from empty desert, if you see your partner in two places at once, don't engage. Call for backup, get to your vehicle, and get to a populated area. The things out there are patient. They're learning. They study us, mimic us, wait for the moment when we're vulnerable. Traditional knowledge works turquoise, sage, salt, iron. Carry 'em, use 'em. Don't be embarrassed about taking precautions that seem superstitious, because in the backcountry, on federal land where few people go, there are things that hunt, things that wear faces they didn't earn, and no training manual covers what to do when you meet yourself walking towards you in the desert. I'd been tracking the Mexican wolf pack for 7 months, knew each animal by their gait and territory markers. When I found M1000 and 51's collar on a tree branch 15 feet up, still transmitting, still warm, with something wearing his frequency signature howling on 2 legs a quarter-mile north, I knew we'd documented something that shouldn't exist. Dr. Sarah Chen wildlife biologist with New Mexico Game and Fish. I run the Mexican Wolf Recovery Program in the Carson National Forest, monitoring reintroduced packs as they establish territories in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. It's technical work, telemetry tracking, scat analysis, prey surveys, conflict mitigation with ranchers. We're trying to save a species that went extinct in the wild, one caller at a time. This was mid-January 2025. Deep winter in the high country. Snowpack at 43 inches. Temperatures bottoming out at 8 degrees Fahrenheit overnight. Perfect tracking conditions if you could handle the cold. I was working solo that Tuesday, running telemetry on the Lobo Peak Pack 5 wolves, all collared, all monitored daily. My truck was parked at the Forest Road terminus, and I was 2 miles in on snowshoes, following a drainage that the pack used as a travel corridor. The telemetry receiver picked up M1051 signal strong and clear mortality mode, which meant the collar hadn't detected movement in 4 hours. Standard protocol: locate the signal, document the site, determine cause of death, recover the collar. Except when I reached the signal source, there was no wolf, just the collar, hanging from a ponderosa pine branch 15 feet off the ground, swaying slightly in the wind. The leather strap was intact, not chewed through or broken. The battery pack was warm to the touch when I pulled it down, like it had just been removed from a living animal. I photographed everything, logged the GPS coordinates, examined the area. No blood, no hair, no signs of struggle. The snow around the tree was undisturbed except for my own tracks approaching. And that's when I heard the howl. North of my position, maybe 400 meters out, a wolf vocalization, but wrong. The pitch was right, the cadence was right, but underneath it I heard something else, like someone playing a wolf call through a speaker with a blown driver, digital artifacts corrupting the sound. My receiver picked it up immediately. M1051's frequency transmitting from the direction of the howl. I had two collars in my hands. M1051's collar with the wolf, and M1051's collar hanging from a tree, both transmitting the same frequency. I keyed my radio. Base, this is Sarah. I've got an equipment malfunction. My telemetry is showing duplicate signals for M1051. Static, then my supervisor's voice. Sarah, run a diagnostic on your receiver. You might have a circuit issue. I ran the diagnostic. Equipment functioning normally. Base equipment checks out. I'm at M1051's mortality signal, but I've recovered the collar and I'm still receiving the same signal from approximately 400 meters north. That's not possible. Each collar has a unique frequency. You can't get the same signature from two sources. I know, but that's what I'm reading. Long pause. Document everything. We'll review the data when you're back. The howl came again, closer now, maybe 300 meters. And this time I caught the visual, something moving through the timber, weaving between the ponderosas with a loping gait. I raised my binoculars. Through the trees, I could see it clearly. A Mexican wolf, adult male, gray-brown coat, moving through deep snow with the efficiency of an animal that lived here. It looked perfect. It looked exactly like M1051, except M1051's collar was in my pack. The wolf stopped, turned its head toward me. Even at this distance, I could see its eyes. Yellow, bright, focused directly on me with an intelligence that felt wrong. Then it stood up, rear legs extending, spine straightening, front leg shortening and repositioning. The transformation took maybe 3 seconds. One moment it was a wolf on all fours. The next, it was standing upright like a human, 7 feet tall, still covered in fur, still with a wolf's head, but built like something else entirely. I dropped the binoculars, grabbed for my bear spray, My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the canister. The thing tilted its head, opened its mouth, and howled again, that same corrupted wolf call, digital and organic at once. The sound carried through the forest, echoed off the mountains, and every bird in 100-yard radius went silent. I did the only thing that made sense. I ran, not back toward my truck that was 2 miles through deep snow, and whatever that thing was, it could cover ground faster than me. Instead, I ran perpendicular toward a granite outcrop I'd mapped during summer surveys, maybe 70 meters away, steep enough that nothing large could follow easily. I heard it behind me, crashing through the timber, not running on 4 legs, running on 2. The outcrop appeared ahead, gray stone jutting from the snow, weathered and solid. I scrambled up the rocks, my snowshoes making it awkward, my pack catching on branches. I made it to a ledge about 12 feet up, pulled myself onto it, and looked back. The thing was standing at the base of the outcrop, staring up at me. In better light, I could see details I wished I couldn't. The body was roughly humanoid, but wrong proportions off, joints bending in too many directions. The head was wolf-shaped, but the skull was too large, the jaw too massive, and the eyes weren't yellow anymore. They were reflective, catching the thin winter light like mirrors. "Dr. Chen," it said, my name, in a human voice. Clear, articulate, completely wrong coming from that mouth. "I've been listening to your radio calls for months, learning your voice, your patterns, your protocols. You talk to yourself when you're tracking. Did you know that? You narrate your observations, practice your field reports. Very helpful." I fumbled for my radio. "Base, I have an emergency situation." "They can't hear you," the thing interrupted. "I'm transmitting on your frequency." White noise. "They just hear static." It was right. My radio was outputting nothing but distortion. "What are you?" I managed to ask. "I'm what M1051 became when he wandered too close to the old places, the sacred sites your maps mark but your species no longer understands." He was weak, dying from mange. I offered him a choice: die slowly or become something else. He chose transformation. "That's not possible. Wolves don't. Species don't just. Your science is very certain about what's possible, but your science only measures what it can see, what it can quantify. There are older rules, older transformations. Your ancestors knew about them, and they forgot." The thing started climbing, not scrambling like I had, but moving with deliberate precision, finding holds that shouldn't support something that size, ascending with impossible grace. I backed further along the ledge. Behind me was a narrow crack in the rock face, maybe 18 inches wide, leading deeper into the outcrop, too small for something 7 feet tall. I squeezed into the crack, turned sideways, worked my way deeper. The rock was cold even through my layers, the space tight enough to make breathing difficult, but I kept moving. The crack opened into a small cavity, maybe 6 feet across, barely tall enough to crouch in, a natural shelter formed by ancient fractures in the granite. I pulled out my headlamp, switched it on. The light revealed something that stopped my breath. The walls were covered in petroglyphs, not modern graffiti, ancient rock art pecked into the stone with stone tools. The images showed wolves, humans, and things that were both and neither. Transformation sequences, ceremonies, warnings, and in the center of the largest panel, someone had carved a date, 1924. Below it, in careful English, "Do not track the wolves after dark. They are not what they were. J.T." My radio crackled. Not static this time. A voice. Female. Professional. Familiar. My own voice. "Base, this is Sarah. Equipment malfunction resolved. M1051 caller recovered successfully. I'm heading back to the truck. ETA 45 minutes. Copy that, Sarah. See you back at the office." I looked at my radio. I hadn't transmitted that. Something was impersonating me on my frequency, reporting false information to my supervisor. The thing's voice echoed from outside the cavity. Your office will expect you in 45 minutes. When you don't arrive, when they find your truck empty, they'll search. They'll find tracks leading into the forest, wolf tracks and human tracks. Eventually, they'll stop searching. Too much snow, too much ground to cover. They'll list you as lost to exposure. Why are you doing this? Because you're documenting us, photographing, recording, mapping. You're showing others where we are, what we do, when we're active. That threatens us. So I'm removing the threat. I checked my pack frantically. Satellite messenger, I could trigger an SOS, send my exact coordinates. I pulled it out, activated the emergency beacon. Error. No signal. The thing laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. I told you I'm transmitting white noise across all your frequencies. Radios, satellite, cell, everything. You're isolated now. My headlamp flickered. Once, twice, went out. In the darkness, I heard something else. Breathing. Not from outside the cavity. From inside it. From behind me. I spun, reached for my bear spray in the pitch black. My hand found the canister, pulled it free, aimed toward the sound. Dr. Chen. A human voice. Male, young, scared. Who's there? My name is Josh Reeves. I'm a hiker from Colorado. I went missing 3 weeks ago. Have you come to rescue me? 3 weeks. That was impossible. No one survives 3 weeks in the Carson Forest in January without gear. Josh, how are you alive? I found this cave. It's been my shelter. But I've been hearing things outside, seeing things. I didn't know if it was safe to leave. I fumbled for my backup light, a small LED on my keyring, clicked it on. The cavity was empty. No one else was there. Josh? I called out. I'm here, the voice said, coming from the crack I'd entered through. I'm right here. Can you help me get out? Understanding hit me like cold water. It wasn't calling from outside anymore. It had learned to throw its voice, or it had always been able to. It was testing me, seeing if I'd go back out to rescue someone who didn't exist. Base, this is Sarah. My own voice called on the radio again. I've found a missing hiker, Josh Reeves from the December 28th report. He's alive, but hypothermic. I'm administering first aid now, sending coordinates for medevac. False coordinates crackled through 6 miles from my actual location. The thing was creating an entire false narrative, a rescue scenario that would draw resources away from where I actually was. I sat in the darkness of the cavity, surrounded by century-old warnings, listening to something, wearing my voice, coordinate a rescue for a person who didn't exist, and realize something fundamental. It wasn't trying to kill me immediately. It was isolating me, confusing the search, making sure that when I did die from exposure, from dehydration, from hypothermia, no one would find my body in time to ask questions. My backup light was fading, battery dying in the cold. In another hour, I'd be in complete darkness. In 3 hours, hypothermia would start. In 6 hours, I'd be dead, unless I did something it didn't expect. I pulled out my field notebook, my pencil, started writing by the fading LED light. Everything I'd observed, the collar in the tree, the duplicate signal, the transformation, the voice mimicry, clinical documentation, the kind that would be credible even from a frozen corpse's notebook. If they found my body, at least they'd have this. I wrote for 20 minutes until my hands were too cold to hold the pencil, until the LED finally died and I was in absolute darkness. And then I heard something I didn't expect. Helicopter rotors, distant but getting closer. A search helicopter, running a grid pattern, sweeping the forest. The thing outside made a sound: frustration, anger, something primal that echoed through the rock. "No," it said in my voice. "No, this isn't right. They shouldn't be here yet." I risked calling out, "Help! I'm in the rocks." The rotors got closer. Spotlight beams swept through the trees, visible through the crack in the stone. "Shut up," the thing hissed. "Shut up or I'll kill you now." I screamed louder. The helicopter swung toward my location, spotlight painting the outcrop in harsh white light. I heard voices on loudspeakers, commands to stay visible, that rescue was incoming. The thing made that grinding rock sound again. Then I heard it moving, not toward me, but away, crashing through the timber with impossible speed, fleeing the light and the voices and the witnesses. 3 hours later, I was in the hospital in Taos, being treated for moderate hypothermia and severe dehydration. The rescue crew said they'd gotten a call from a local rancher who'd heard my emergency beacon, said it had been transmitting for hours on a frequency his old ham radio picked up. I hadn't activated any beacon. My satellite messenger had shown no signal, but somehow the SOS had gotten through. The rancher, a guy named Thomas Begay, came to visit me the next day. Elderly Navajo man, must have been in his 80s, wearing turquoise and silver. "Your equipment didn't fail," he said quietly. "The interference was real. But old technology sometimes works when new technology doesn't. My grandfather's ham radio from 1952, it picks up things that modern equipment can't. How did you know to look for me?" "I didn't. But when I heard your beacon, I recognized the pattern. The same pattern that went out in 1924 when Joseph Thorne went missing. The last biologist who tracked wolves in Carson Forest. The one who carved that warning you found. He survived for 3 days, long enough to tell people what he saw, long enough to be called crazy, long enough to warn people not to track the wolves after dark. I checked out of the hospital the next day against medical advice, wrote my report carefully, equipment malfunction, became disoriented in severe weather, took shelter in rock formation, rescued successfully, professional language, nothing about transformations or voice mimicry or things that weren't wolves anymore. But I attached a recommendation: suspend all wolf tracking operations in Carson National Forest between sunset and sunrise, refit all collars with additional backup transmitters, implement mandatory two-person teams for all field work. The recommendations were approved without question. I still work the Mexican wolf recovery program, but I don't work alone anymore. I don't track after dark. And I carry Thomas Begay's grandfather's ham radio in my pack, modified to trigger emergency beacons on frequencies that existed before digital encryption, before satellite networks, before things learned to transmit white noise. Because in the high country, among the old places where wolves were reintroduced to land they'd been erased from, something else came back too. Something that remembered when the boundary between wolf and human wasn't as fixed as we like to believe. If you work wildlife biology, especially with reintroduction programs on traditional lands, take this seriously. Respect the old boundaries. Don't assume modern technology makes you safe. And if your tracking collar shows up empty while still transmitting, don't follow the signal. Because what's wearing the frequency might not be what you collared. The lost hiker cell ping put him at the Meadow Creek Trail Junction, hypothermic and immobile, according to his last text. We found him there at 0200 hours, right where the GPS said, but the real hiker was 6 miles south, and what we'd loaded into the litter was already changing shape by the time we reached the first switchback. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm a volunteer with Grant County Search and Rescue, certified EMTB, and I've run over 40 missions in the Gila Wilderness. This is the first one where I had to abandon a patient on the trail and call in law enforcement instead of medevac. Let me back up. The call came in Tuesday evening, January 7th, 2025. Male hiker, age 26, failed to return from a day hike in the Gila. His girlfriend reported him overdue at 1800 hours. Last known position was the West Fork Trail, planning to summit Mogollon Baldy and return by nightfall. Standard missing hiker scenario, except for one detail. He'd sent a text at 1930 hours saying he was injured, couldn't walk, and was sheltering at Meadow Creek Junction. Cell ping confirmed the location. Temperature was dropping to 22 degrees. We had a time-sensitive rescue. Our team assembled at the Gila Visitor Center by 2000 hours. 6 of us total, myself as team leader, 2 EMTs, 3 support personnel, all certified in wilderness rescue. We had coordinates, we had communications, we had medical gear, and a wheeled litter for patient transport. Simple extraction. Get in, stabilize, get out. We started up the West Fork Trail at 2015 hours, making good time despite night conditions. The trail was clear, no snow at this elevation, and we had good moonlight. 3 miles in, we reached Meadow Creek Junction at 0200 hours, right on schedule, and there he was. Male, mid-20s. Correct physical description from the missing person report. Sitting propped against a ponderosa pine, wrapped in a space blanket. His headlamp was on, visible from 50 yards out. "Brandon Sullivan?" I called out as we approached. "That's me," he responded, voice weak but clear. "Thank God you're here. I think my ankle's broken." Standard presentation. I signaled the team forward while I did the initial assessment. "Brandon, I'm Marcus with Grant County SAR. Can you tell me what happened?" I twisted my ankle coming down from the summit around 1700 hours. Tried to walk it off but couldn't bear weight. Made it to this junction and called for help. Timeline matched. Injury matched. Everything was textbook. I knelt next to him, started my patient assessment. Airway clear, breathing normal, pulse strong at 72 BPM, right ankle swollen and discolored, possible fracture, definitely needed immobilization. "Anyone else with you on this hike?" I asked, while my partner Amanda started splinting the ankle. "No, solo hiker. Any medical conditions we should know about? Medications?" "None. Healthy. Just stupid for hiking alone." The ankle splint went on smoothly. We got him packaged in the litter with warming layers, strapped him in properly, briefed him on the extraction process. Professional, efficient, by the numbers. We started back down the trail at 0240 hours. 6 of us rotating on the litter, maintaining good pace on the relatively smooth trail. That's when my radio crackled with traffic from base. "Marcus, this is command. We just got another call from Brandon Sullivan's cell phone. He says he's at Willow Creek, approximately 6 miles south of your position. Says he never made it to Meadow Creek Junction." I stopped walking. The team stopped with me. "Command, say again." "Brandon Sullivan just called from a different location. Claims he's been at Willow Creek since 2000 hours, unable to move due to leg injury. Cell tower ping confirms Willow Creek." I looked at the litter. The man strapped inside was watching me with calm, patient eyes. "Command, we have Brandon Sullivan with us right now. Visual confirmation, proper ID, matches the missing person description." "Copy that, Marcus. But we're looking at an active cell phone at a second location, and the caller has details that match the missing person report. Girlfriend confirms it's his voice on the call." "Did you ask verification questions?" "Affirmative." He provided his girlfriend's full name, his vehicle license plate, and described his route plan accurately. I pulled out the patient information sheet we'd been given. "Brandon, what's your girlfriend's name?" The man in the litter smiled. "Jessica Martinez." "Correct. Vehicle license plate, New Mexico tag, NMD 4472. Also correct. What trail did you take to the summit?" "West Fork to the Baldy Trail Junction, then north to the peak." "All accurate." I keyed my radio. "Command, subject here is providing correct verification details as well. What's your guidance?" Long pause. "Stand by." Amanda moved closer. Marcus, this doesn't make sense. We can't have two Brandon Sullivans. I know. The man in the litter spoke up. Maybe someone's pranking you? Using my information? How would they get your information? I don't know. But I'm right here. I'm the one who called for help. I'm injured and freezing, and I just want to get off this mountain. Logical. Reasonable. Except I had command telling me there was another person claiming to be the same individual 6 miles away. My radio. Marcus, this is Sheriff Dawson. I'm patching into your frequency. The individual at Willow Creek is providing real-time information that only Brandon Sullivan should know, including a text conversation with his girlfriend from this morning that hasn't been publicly shared. We need you to secure your subject and proceed to Willow Creek to verify the second individual. Secure? You mean detain? Make sure whoever you have doesn't leave that litter, and be ready for this situation to get complicated. I looked at the man strapped into our rescue litter. He looked scared now, confused, human. This is crazy, he said. Why would you detain me? I'm the victim here. I understand this is confusing, I said carefully, but we need to sort this out. For everyone's safety, I need you to stay secured in the litter while we figure out what's happening. Do I have a choice? Not really. His expression changed, just slightly. The fear drained away, replaced by something neutral and cold. Interesting, he said. That one word made my skin crawl. The inflection was wrong, the tone too detached. I signaled Amanda. Keep everyone away from the litter. Minimum 5-foot perimeter. Marcus, what's going on? I don't know yet, but maintain that distance. We continued down the trail, now moving toward Willow Creek instead of back to the trailhead. 6 miles of rough terrain, and we were carrying something that might not be human. The man in the litter didn't speak for the next hour, just lay there, watching us with those calm, patient eyes. Occasionally I'd check on him, vitals still normal, restraint still secure, ankles still swollen and discolored. Everything looked right. At 04:15 hours, we were descending a steep switchback when I heard Amanda gasp, Marcus, look at his ankle. I turned. The swollen, discolored ankle we'd splinted was now completely normal. No swelling, no discoloration, no sign of injury. The splint was still in place, still properly secured, but the ankle inside it had healed, or had never been injured. What the hell? One of the support crew whispered. The man in the litter smiled. You're very observant. Most rescue teams don't notice until much later. What are you? I asked. I'm what you came looking for. I'm what you expected to find. I'm the injured hiker at Meadow Creek Junction, right where the coordinates said I'd be. That's not an answer. Sure it is. You got a call, you got coordinates, you got a description. You found exactly what you expected to find. The fact that I'm not actually Brandon Sullivan is, well, that's a detail most people overlook. Amanda had her hand on her bear spray. Where's the real Brandon? Where your command said, Willow Creek. He's been there the whole time. I just got to Meadow Creek first, learned what you were looking for, and became it. Why? The thing wearing Brandon Sullivan's face looked thoughtful. Call it curiosity. I want to see how your rescue process worked, how you assessed patients, how you transported them, where you took them. Knowledge is useful. Knowledge for what? For next time, when I might need to be rescued legitimately, when I'm actually injured and need your help. It's important to understand the procedures. My mind was racing through options. We were miles from help, in rough terrain, in the dark, with something that could apparently mimic human beings, perfectly injuries, and all strapped into our litter. Marcus, one of the crew said quietly, should we let it go? No. I surprised myself with how certain I sounded. We maintain custody. We document everything. We continue to Willow Creek, verify the real victim, and we let law enforcement figure out what to do with this. The thing laughed. You're going to maintain custody of me? How? You're strapped into a litter. You can't get out without our help. Can't I? The straps didn't move. The litter didn't shift. But suddenly the thing wearing Brandon's face was sitting up, completely unrestrained, all 5 lashing straps still buckled exactly as they'd been, but no longer securing anything. It stood up in the litter, balanced perfectly despite the uneven terrain. The problem with your restraints, it said, is they restrain a physical body, and I'm not entirely physical, not in the way you understand it. It stepped out of the litter onto the trail, fully mobile, completely unhurt. But here's the thing, I'm not hostile. I'm not here to hurt you. I was genuinely curious about your rescue procedures. Now I know. So I'll be going. Wait, I said. The real Brandon Sullivan. Is he actually at Willow Creek? Is he actually injured? Yes. He fell at approximately 1900 hours, suffered a compound fracture of his left tibia, managed to drag himself to Willow Creek where he's been unable to move since. He's getting hypothermic. You should hurry. How do you know all this? I watched him fall. I was tracking him all day, learning his patterns, his appearance, his voice. When he got injured, I saw an opportunity. I called for help from his phone, then went to Meadow Creek to intercept the rescue team. Simple misdirection. You delayed his rescue by hours. He could die. He might, but probably not if you hurry. And honestly, his suffering taught me important things about human physiology under stress. Pain responses, shock progression, hypothermic symptoms. Very educational. It started walking away, moving with that too smooth gait I'd seen in other SAW reports but never believed. One more thing, it called back. The ankle injury? That wasn't mimicry. I actually broke my own ankle to make the injury convincing. Then, I healed it. Want to see if you'd noticed the healing process? You did. Good work. Then it was gone, stepping off the trail and disappearing into the darkness with impossible speed. We stood there for a full minute, nobody speaking, trying to process what had just happened. Finally, Amanda broke the silence. We need to get to Willow Creek, now. We abandoned the litter, it was too heavy to move at speed, and pushed hard toward Willow Creek with medical gear only. Made the 6 miles in 90 minutes, arriving just as dawn started breaking. Brandon Sullivan was exactly where the thing had said he'd be. 26 years old, hypothermic, conscious but disoriented, with a compound fracture of his left tibia that had broken the skin. Blood loss, shock, early stage frostbite on his extremities, critical but stable. We did rapid stabilization, called for helicopter medevac, got him packaged properly. The helicopter arrived at 07:20 hours and extracted him to Gila Regional Medical Center. He survived, full recovery expected. When the sheriff's deputies arrived to take our statements, we told them everything. The thing at Meadow Creek, the perfect mimicry, the impossible escape from the litter, the self-inflicted injury that healed. They wrote it all down. Professional, thorough, non-judgmental. Then the senior deputy, a guy named Ortega, who'd worked Grant County for 20 years, said something that stuck with me. This is the 4th report like this in the Gila Wilderness in the last 2 years. Different teams, different missions, but the same pattern, perfect mimicry of a real victim, impossible knowledge of details, and disappearance once confronted. Whatever it is, it's studying us, learning our procedures. And I think eventually it's going to use that knowledge. Use it how? Think about it. It can look like anyone. It can mimic injuries. It knows how we verify identity. It understands our rescue protocols. What happens when it decides it wants to get into a hospital? Or a command center? Or a secure facility? It just has to play injured hiker. We extract it to wherever it wants to go, and by the time anyone realizes something's wrong, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I still volunteer with Grant County SAR. We've implemented new protocols. Now all patients get photographed on-site, then rephotographed every 30 minutes during transport. We verify details with multiple sources. We never rely on a single point of identification, and we pay attention to injuries that heal because in the Gila wilderness, there's something that's been watching us work, learning our procedures, studying how we operate, and it's patient, methodical, curious. The night we found it at Meadow Creek, it wasn't trying to hurt anyone. It was just gathering information. But information is preparation, and preparation suggests intent. I don't know what it's preparing for, but I know it's studying us with intelligence and purpose. And I know that every rescue mission now carries an extra question we never had to ask before. Is the person we're extracting actually human? For anyone working search and rescue, especially in wilderness areas bordering traditional lands, verify everything, photograph everything, re-verify periodically during transport. If injuries change, if details stop matching, if something feels wrong with your patient, don't dismiss it as stress or exhaustion. Trust your instincts, document anomalies, and understand that not everyone calling for rescue is human, but some of them are very, very good at pretending to be. If you work SAR and you've had missions that didn't make sense, patients who healed too fast, details that didn't add up, the feeling that you extracted something other than what you thought you were extracting, share your experiences below. And if you want more accounts from rescue professionals who've documented things that shouldn't be possible, hit subscribe. Every week I bring you stories from first responders dealing with situations that go beyond standard operating procedures. Stay safe out there, and remember, just because someone calls for help doesn't mean they're the victim. I found 3 of my Angus dead in the arroyo, surgical cuts, no blood, same mutilation pattern as the Wilson Ranch last spring. Then I found my own boot prints circling the kill site in the snow, except I'd been in Farmington buying feed all day, and I was looking at them from my truck at midnight. Tom Whitehorse, third-generation cattle rancher working 200 acres near Navajo Dam in northwestern New Mexico. My grandfather bought this land in 1967. My father expanded it in the 90s, and I've been running the operation since 2019. It's hard country, high desert, cold winters, summer drought, but it's home. This happened last February during one of the worst cold snaps we'd had in years. Temperatures bottoming out at -12 overnight, snowpack at 18 inches, wind chill making it dangerous to stay outside longer than 20 minutes. I'd been in Farmington all day Tuesday, the 13th, buying feed and supplies. Left the ranch at 0700, didn't get back until 1930. 9 hours away, receipts to prove it, security camera footage from 3 different stores. When I pulled up to the house, my dogs were going insane. Not barking at coyotes or alerting to deer, genuine distress barking, the kind they do when something's fundamentally wrong. They wouldn't leave the porch, wouldn't come to me when I called. That was the first warning. I grabbed my spotlight and my rifle, Remington 700 inches, 308, standard ranch gun, and walked the fence line. Everything looked secure until I reached the eastern pasture. The gate was open, not damaged, not broken, just unlatched and swinging in the wind. I always check my gates. It's automatic, like breathing. That gate had been closed and locked when I left. I drove my truck through the gate, followed the fence line with my spotlight, found them in the arroyo about 400 yards in. 3 Angus steers, yearlings, worth about 900 each, dead, arranged in a triangle pattern, maybe 20 feet between each animal, and the mutilations were surgical. Right ear removed on all 3, clean circular cuts, left eye missing from each animal, removed with what looked like a coring tool, genitals removed with precision cuts, and no blood. None on the ground, none on the animals, like they'd been drained completely before the cutting started. I've seen predator kills. I've seen animals dead from disease, from lightning, from accidents. This was none of those things. This was deliberate, methodical, and impossible. I called the sheriff's office, got dispatcher saying a deputy would be out in the morning. They were swamped with weather emergencies and couldn't spare anyone for livestock investigations until daylight. While I waited on hold, I walked around the kill site with my spotlight, documenting everything with my phone camera. That's when I saw the boot prints. They circled all three animals. Single set of tracks, clear in the snow. Size 11, Ariat work boots with a distinctive tread pattern. The exact boots I was wearing. I looked down at my own feet. Same boots, same tread, same wear pattern on the heel where I favor my right leg. I followed the tracks. They came from the direction of my house, walked directly to the first steer, then to the second, then the third, then circled back. At the first steer, the prints showed where someone had knelt down, worked on the animal for several minutes based on the depth and distribution of the knee impressions, then stood and moved to the next. The tracks led back toward my house, across the pasture, through the gate I'd found open. I followed them all the way to my porch, where they stopped, not at my door, not going inside, just stopped at the porch steps, like whoever made them had simply ceased to exist. I checked my security camera battery-powered unit I'd installed last summer after the Wilson Ranch had trouble, pulled up the footage on my phone. 1915 hours, 45 minutes before I got home. The camera showed a figure walking from the direction of the barn toward the eastern pasture. The footage was grainy in the dusk light, but I could make out details. Dark coat, same as mine. White Stetson, same as mine. Walk that looked identical to my gait, slight favor to the right leg from an old rodeo injury. The figure walked off camera toward the east. 23 minutes later, it walked back. This time it was carrying something, dragging it. The footage was too dark to make out clearly, but the shape was wrong, too long, too many limbs. It stopped at my porch, looked directly at the camera, and smiled. The face was mine, my exact face. But the smile was wrong, too wide, pulling the skin too tight, showing too much tooth and gum. Then it walked up the porch steps and the footage cut to static. When the static cleared, the porch was empty. Timestamp showed 1928, 2 minutes before I actually arrived home. I was standing on my porch watching footage of myself doing things I hadn't done, standing in places I hadn't been, while my own boot prints in the snow proved someone wearing my exact boots had mutilated my cattle while I was 90 miles away. I didn't sleep that night. Sat in my living room with my rifle across my lap, watching the windows, listening to my dogs whine and pace. The deputy showed up at 0800 Wednesday morning. Young guy, maybe late 20s, named Rodriguez. He examined the site, photographed everything, took samples of the cuts. Same pattern as Wilson's, he said, and the Martinez Ranch before that. 6 cattle mutilations in San Juan County since November. All identical methodology. What about the boot prints, I asked. He measured them, photographed them, then measured my boots. Perfect match. You said you were in Farmington all day? Yes. I've got receipts, timestamps, camera footage from the stores. And someone's wearing boots exactly like yours. Same size, same brand, same wear pattern. He looked uncomfortable. Or you're lying to me about your whereabouts. Deputy, I've got no reason to mutilate my own cattle. That's $2,700 I just lost. Unless it's insurance fraud. I don't have livestock mortality insurance. Never saw the point for a small operation like this. He wrote that down, then looked at the tracks again. The boot prints lead to your house. Stop at your porch. There's camera footage of someone who looks like you. And you're telling me it wasn't you. That's exactly what I'm telling you. And then what's your theory? I've been thinking about that all night. I don't have one that makes sense. He packed up his evidence kit. I'll file the report. If you think of anything else, call the office. And Mr. Whitehorse, maybe stay somewhere else for a few nights until we figure out what's happening. But where was I going to go? This was my land, my ranch, my home. I wasn't leaving because of boot prints and dead cattle. That was a mistake. Wednesday night, 2200 hours, my dog started barking again. I looked out the window and saw a figure standing at the fence line. Same coat, same hat, same build as me. It was just standing there, facing the house, not moving. I grabbed my rifle, turned on the porch light. The figure didn't react to the light, just stood there, perfectly still. I raised a rifle, aimed center mass, yelled through the window, "Get off my property." The figure tilted its head too far, neck articulating wrong, and raised one hand in a wave. Then it opened its mouth, and my own voice came out, clear and loud, across 200 yards of snow. "Tom, it's me. My truck broke down on the access road. Can you come help?" My truck was parked 30 feet away in my driveway, visible from where the figure stood. "I need help, Tom. It's cold out here." I fired a warning shot into the snow 20 feet in front of it. The figure didn't flinch, just kept standing there, smiling with my face. "Tom, why won't you help me? I'm you. You'd want someone to help you." I fired again, this time at the figure itself. The round hit center mass, I'm certain of it. The figure stumbled back, but didn't fall, didn't bleed, just regained its balance and started walking toward the house. I fired 3 more rounds, all hits, all ineffective. The figure reached my fence, put both hands on the top rail, and vaulted over with impossible grace. Started walking across the yard toward my porch. I dropped the rifle, grabbed my truck keys, and ran out the back door to my truck. Engine started and in reverse before I even had the door closed. Drove backward down my driveway, spun around, and floored it toward the main road. In my rearview mirror, I watched the figure standing in my yard, watching me leave. It raised both hands and waved goodbye with perfect synchronization. I drove to my neighbor's place 3 miles south of Morrison Ranch and pounded on their door at 2300 hours. Ed Morrison, 68 years old, ex-Marine, answered with a shotgun in his hands. I told him everything. The cattle, the prints, the camera footage, the figure in my yard. Expected him to call me crazy or drunk. Instead, he said, "It's been working its way through the ranches. Hit Wilson in November, Martinez in December, Jensen 2 weeks ago. We knew you were probably next." Why didn't anyone warn me? Because what were we going to say? Watch out for something that looks exactly like you, that walks in your boots, wears your face, knows how to move like you? Ed lowered his shotgun. "We're ranchers, Tom. We deal in facts. Cattle prices, water rights, predator control. We don't deal in things that can't exist. But it does exist. I saw it. I shot it. I know. Wilson shot it too. 5 rounds from a 45 center mass. No effect. It kept walking until he got in his truck and left. Didn't come back that night. So what do we do?" Ed thought for a moment. "My wife's Dene Navajo. She's got family who know about these things. Let me make a call." An hour later, an elderly woman arrived. Ed's wife's grandmother had to be in her 80s, wearing traditional velvet and turquoise. She listened to my story without interrupting, asked a few questions in accented English, then nodded. "You're marked," she said simply. "Something's been watching you, learning you, copying you. Now it wants to replace you. Take your life, your land, your name. How do I stop it?" "You don't stop it. You break its connection. It can't replace you if it can't reach you. You need to stay away from your land for 7 days. Don't go back. Don't even drive past. Let it wait for you. After 7 days without contact, it has to find someone else." 7 days? What about my cattle, my property? "I'll check your cattle," Ed offered. "You stay here. We've got the guest room." And after 7 days, the old woman smiled, but it wasn't comforting. After 7 days, it will move on to someone else, someone new. and the cycle continues. I stayed at the Morrison Ranch for 7 days. Ed checked my property twice daily. Cattle were fine. No more mutilations. No sign of the figure. My security camera had been destroyed, ripped from its mount, circuit board crushed. On the 8th day, I went home. Everything was as I'd left it, except for one detail. There were boot prints everywhere. My boot prints. Around the house, around the barn, in every pasture, circling every structure. Hundreds of prints, like the thing had spent 7 days pacing my entire property, searching for me, but it was gone. 2 weeks later, I heard about the Yazzie Ranch, 15 miles east. 3 cattle mutilated, same pattern. Boot prints in the snow, matching the owner's boots exactly. Security footage showing someone who looked identical to the owner, doing things the owner hadn't done. The cycle continued. I still run my ranch, but I installed better security. I carry Navajo protection, white shell, and turquoise that the old woman gave me, and I never, ever go outside after dark alone. Because in northwestern New Mexico, near the reservation boundaries, there's something that watches ranchers, studies us, learns how we walk, how we talk, how we move through our land, and when it's ready, it tries to become us. I don't know what it does with the cattle. I don't know why it needs the mutilations, but I know it's still out there, working its way from ranch to ranch, wearing faces that aren't its own, and someday it might come back for mine. We were replacing insulators on the 115 kilovolts transmission line when Rodriguez's fall arrest locked up, caught him at 20 feet, textbook stop. But Rodriguez was still in the bucket next to me, and what was hanging from his lanyard 30 feet below had too many joints in its arms and wasn't screaming the way a man should scream. Danny Ortega, journeyman lineman with High Desert Electric Cooperative. I've been working transmission lines in northwestern New Mexico for 14 years, the last 6 as a crew lead. If you don't know the trade, here's what matters. We work on high voltage lines, carrying enough electricity to vaporize you instantly if you make contact. Everything we do is double checked. Every procedure followed exactly, because one mistake is your last mistake. This was Thursday, January 16th, 2025. We had a 4-man crew working a line rebuild near Bloomfield, replacing aging ceramic insulators on Tower 47, part of the 115 kilovolts transmission corridor that runs from the San Juan generating station to Farmington. Cold morning, 19 degrees, light wind, good working conditions. The crew was myself, Jesse Rodriguez, Kyle Bennett, and Travis Nakai, all certified journeymen, all experienced with high voltage work. We had worked together for 3 years, knew each other's moves, communicated well. The plan was straightforward: de-energize the line segment, establish grounds, use the bucket trucks to access the tower, replace 12 insulators, test and re-energize. 6-hour job if everything went smooth. We de-energized at 0600 hours, confirmed voltage 0 with our test equipment, installed the ground's heavy copper cables that provide a path to Earth if any unexpected voltage shows up. By 0730 we were in the buckets, starting the work. I was in bucket 1 with Rodriguez. Kyle and Travis were in bucket 2, positioned on the opposite side of the tower. Standard configuration for this type of work. Rodriguez and I had replaced 4 insulators without issue. He was handling the impact wrench. I was managing the new hardware. We just started on insulator 5 when Rodriguez's radio crackled. Danny, this is Rodriguez. Can you come down here? I dropped my socket set. I looked at Rodriguez standing 2 feet from me in the bucket. He looked back at me, confused. Did you just call me on the radio? I asked. No, I'm right here. The radio crackled again. Danny, can you hear me? I need that socket set. It's under the tower. Rodriguez, the real Rodriguez, standing next to me, keyed his radio. This is Rodriguez. I'm in the bucket with Danny. Who's on this frequency? Silence for a moment. Then, Danny, something's wrong with my radio. Can you just come get the socket set? The voice was perfect. Same accent, same speech pattern, same slight rasp from years of shouting over equipment noise. I keyed my radio. Kyle, Travis, you guys seeing anything unusual down there? Negative. Just the standard equipment. Why? Someone's on our frequency using Rodriguez's voice, asking me to come down to ground level. Long pause. Danny, that's weird. We're not seeing anyone else on site. I looked over the side of the bucket. The tower was a steel lattice structure, about 90 feet tall. Below us was our equipment, trucks, trailers, the grounding cables we'd installed. Everything looked normal. Rodriguez called again. Danny, forget the socket set. I think I see a problem with the ground. You need to come check this. That got my attention. Grounding was life safety critical. If there was an issue with the ground connection, we needed to address it immediately. But Rodriguez was still standing next to me. I could literally reach out and touch him. Kyle, I radioed. I need you to go visual on the grounds. Check all connection points. Someone or something is claiming there's a problem. Copy. Travis and I are coming down. I watched Kyle and Travis lower their bucket, exit at ground level, and walk to the tower base where our grounding cables were attached. They checked each connection point thoroughly. All grounds are solid. Kyle called up. No issues. Connections are tight. Cables are in good condition. The radio crackled again, but this time it was different. My own voice. Kyle, this is Danny. I need you to disconnect the grounds. We got a call from dispatch. Line needs to be re-energized early for emergency power routing. I keyed my radio immediately. Kyle, disregard that. Do not touch those grounds. That was not me. Copy that, Danny. We're not touching anything. Rodriguez grabbed my arm. What the hell is going on? I don't know, but someone's mimicking us on the radio, trying to get us to violate safety protocols. Mimicking or intercepting? Good question. Radio intercept was possible. Criminals had done it before, breaking into utility frequencies to create confusion during theft operations. But they typically scrambled communications. They didn't mimic specific voices. Kyle's voice came through. Danny, I've got visual on something. South side of the tower, about 40 feet up. It looks like someone climbing. I looked. At first, I didn't see anything. Then movement caught my eye. Someone was climbing the tower. No safety gear, no harness, just free climbing the steel structure like it was a ladder. Moving fast, too fast, with the kind of fluid motion that suggested either incredible skill or complete disregard for physics. The climber was wearing high-vis yellow, the same color as our crew gear. As it got closer, I could see more details. Dark pants, work boots, safety vest. It looked like Rodriguez. Jesse, I said slowly, don't move, don't react. But there's something climbing toward us that looks exactly like you. What? Just stay calm, stay in the bucket. The climbing figure reached the level of our bucket, about 60 feet up, and stopped. It was positioned on the tower structure about 10 feet away from us, clinging to the steel with impossible casualness, like gravity didn't quite apply. And it was Rodriguez. Same face, same build, same gear. But the eyes were wrong, too reflective, catching the morning light like an animal's. Gentlemen, it said in Rodriguez's voice, you should evacuate. There's about to be a fault on this line. Line's de-energized, I said, keeping my voice level. There can't be a fault. Can't there? The thing smiled, reached out with one hand, and touched the energized conductor with the aluminum cable that should have been dead, but according to our instruments, was at 0 volts. Nothing happened. No arc flash, no explosion, no incineration. It just held the conductor, metal to metal, like touching a railing. Your test equipment lied. It said pleasantly, this line's been energized the whole time. You're standing in a hot bucket, wearing metal tools, one wrong move from completing a circuit that'll cook you both. My blood went cold. I looked at the grounds we'd installed. If the line was actually energized, those grounds should be glowing red hot, conducting hundreds of amps to Earth, but they looked normal. Rodriguez pulled out our voltage tester, a sophisticated digital unit that detected electrical fields without contact. He pointed it at the conductor, reading 0 volts. "It's lying," Rodriguez said. "The line's dead. Our grounds are working. That thing is trying to scare us." The flaming figure cocked its head. "Am I?" "Then explain this." It grabbed the conductor with both hands, pulled itself up onto it, and stood, balanced on a single aluminum cable 90 feet in the air, arms outstretched like a tightrope walker. If the line was energized, it should have been dead. If the line was de-energized, it shouldn't have mattered either way. But something about the way it moved, the casual confidence, made my instincts scream. "Danny." Rodriguez's voice was tight. "We need to get down. Now." "Agreed. Lower the bucket." I hit the controls. Nothing happened. The hydraulics didn't respond. I tried the backup controls. Still nothing. "Bucket's not responding," I said into the radio. "Kyle, can you operate the boom from the ground controls?" "Trying now." "Negative. Nothing's responding. They're stuck up there." The thing standing on the conductor laughed. "You're starting to understand. This isn't about electricity anymore. This is about choice." "What choice?" "One of you can leave. One of you stays. The bucket will only respond for one person. You have 30 seconds to decide." "That's not how hydraulics work," Rodriguez said. "Isn't it? Try it. One of you push the down button. See what happens." Rodriguez and I looked at each other. He nodded. I pushed the controls. The bucket lurched, dropped 6 inches, then stopped. "Now you try," I said. Rodriguez pushed the controls. Nothing happened. "Interesting," the thing said. "It likes Danny better. Danny gets to leave. Rodriguez stays." "Nobody's staying," I said. "We're both getting down. And you'll both stay. Forever. Frozen in this bucket at 90 feet. Until eventually hypothermia takes you, or dehydration, or you simply go mad and jump. Your choice." Kyle's voice crackled. "Danny, I'm climbing up with a rescue harness. We'll lower Rodriguez manually if we have to." "Don't," the thing said, though Kyle couldn't hear it. "If anyone else comes up here, they'll stay too. This tower's mine now. Your guests. Unwelcome guests." My mind was racing through options. We had emergency procedures for stuck buckets, crane rescue, ladder rescue, helicopter extraction, but all of those took time. And if this thing could disable our hydraulics, what else could it do? "What do you want?" I asked. "I want you to leave. All of you. This is a sacred site you're disrupting. This tower stands on land that shouldn't have been built on, carrying power stolen from water that should flow free." It gestured toward the San Juan River Valley, visible in the distance. "Your generating station. Your coal plant. Your lines carrying electricity stolen from Dene land and Dene water. I'm what grows in the spaces you violated. I'm the consequence." "We're just doing our job," Rodriguez said. "So am I. My job is to make this land hostile to you, to make your infrastructure fail, to make you afraid to come back." I noticed something then. The thing's shadow on the tower structure. It was wrong, too long, too distorted, like the sun was in a different position than it actually was. "You're not even real, are you?" I said. "You're a projection, a hologram, something, creating an image." The thing smiled wider. "Doesn't matter. Real or not, your bucket still won't move. Your coworker still can't get down. Real or not, I can keep you here until you die of exposure." Kyle's voice. "Danny, I'm at the tower base, starting my climb." "Kyle, stop," I ordered. "Do not climb this tower. You're stuck. I'm coming to get you." "Kyle, that's an order. Stand down." But through the lattice structure, I could see Kyle ascending, climbing steadily, professionally, using proper 3-point contact. He was at 30 feet. The thing turned its attention toward him. Another guest. How wonderful. And then I saw something that changed everything. Below Kyle, at the 20-foot level, something detached from the tower, a shape, dark and indistinct, that had been clinging to the steel structure so perfectly camouflaged I hadn't seen it. It moved down toward Kyle with insectile speed. Kyle! Below you. Kyle looked down. The shape reached him, wrapped around him like smoke, and his fall arrest system triggered the safety device that locks if a climber falls, catching them before they hit ground. Kyle jerked to a stop, hanging from his lanyard 20 feet up, but something was wrong. His body was thrashing, limbs moving in too many directions, making sounds that weren't quite screams. Rodriguez, Kyle's voice called from the thrashing figure. Help me, something's got me. But Kyle was also climbing up toward us, the real Kyle, moving steadily, calling up, I'm almost there. Hold on. There were two Kyles, one hanging at 20 feet, caught by something dark, one still climbing toward us at 40 feet. Rodriguez grabbed my shoulder. Danny, which one is real? I had no idea. The thing standing on the conductor laughed. This is more fun than I expected. You really can't tell, can you? Let me help. Both Kyles spoke simultaneously. Danny, it's me. I'm the real one. The other one is fake. The climbing Kyle reached our level. His face was Kyle's face, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The way he moved. Maybe. The way his eyes focused. Get in the bucket, I said, carefully. He reached for the bucket edge, started to swing his leg over. The thing on the conductor said, wrong choice. The climbing Kyle's face melted. Literally melted. Features running like wax, revealing something underneath that wasn't human. Something with too many teeth and eyes that glowed with their own light. Rodriguez and I both scrambled back, but there was nowhere to go in the bucket. And then the real Kyle called from below. Danny, the hydraulics just came back online. I'm at ground control. I can lower you. The bucket suddenly dropped, smooth and controlled, descending toward ground level. The melting thing in front of us shrieked a sound like metal tearing and let go of the tower, falling but not falling, dissipating into smoke before it hit the ground. We descended past the thrashing figure at 20 feet. As we passed it, I saw it clearly. It wasn't Kyle. It was something wearing a rough approximation of Kyle's safety gear, hanging from a piece of steel that was bent in a direction steel doesn't bend. We reached the ground. Kyle was at the boom controls. Travis was backing away from the tower base, both of them white-faced and shaking. We need to leave, Travis said. Right now. The equipment. I started. Leave it. We file an incident report. We get a different crew. We never come back to this tower. This isn't worth it. He was right. We packed only what we could carry, personal gear, radios, safety equipment, left the bucket trucks, left the tools, left everything else. We drove away from Tower 47 and didn't stop until we reached the dispatch office in Bloomfield. The incident report took 6 hours to complete. 3 different supervisors questioned us. The utility sent investigators to the tower site. They found our equipment undamaged, found the grounds properly installed and the line properly de-energized, found no evidence of sabotage or interference. But they also found something else. When they reviewed the data logs from our bucket truck computers, they found a gap from 0715 to 0930, the exact time we were working. All the truck systems showed no activity, like the trucks hadn't been there at all. The utility classified it as equipment malfunction, replaced our entire fleet of bucket trucks as a precaution, sent a different crew to finish the Tower 47 job. That crew reported no issues, completed the work in 5 hours without incident, but they worked during the day, and they didn't stay past 3 p.m. because after 3 p.m., Tower 47 shadow reaches the old Pueblo ruins 200 yards west, ruins that predate the power line by 700 years. Ruins that the original surveyors noted in their reports with a recommendation to route around sacred site if possible. That recommendation was ignored. Tower 47 was built where it was most cost effective, not where it was most respectful. And something in those ruins noticed. I still work for High Desert Electric, but I turned down any assignments involving Tower 47. So does the rest of my crew. There are plenty of other towers, plenty of other lines. Let different crews handle that one. Crews that don't know what can happen when you build on land that doesn't want you there. That's the story. Real incident, real crew, real tower. We don't talk about it much at work, not because we're scared, but because it sounds insane when you say it out loud. But every lineman who's worked the San Juan corridor long enough has a story. Equipment that fails for no reason. Voices on the radio that shouldn't be there. The feeling of being watched from empty desert. We just work around it, and we don't argue with shadows. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment if you work utilities and you've seen weird stuff on the line. And subscribe if you want more true accounts from the people keeping your power on in places most folks never see. The radio telescope array was tracking pulsar J 437, 27 dishes synchronized in perfect formation. Then dish 19 started tracking something else, something moving terrestrially, bipedal signature, closing on our control building at 40 miles per hour while transmitting my advisor's voice on the emergency frequency, asking to be let inside. Dr. Lisa Park, postdoctoral researcher with the Very Large Array in central New Mexico. If you don't know the VLA, it's one of the most powerful radio telescope facilities in the world, 27 dish antennas, each 82 feet in diameter, arranged in a Y pattern across the San Agustin Plains. We observe everything from distant galaxies to solar phenomena, mapping the radio spectrum with precision most people can't comprehend. This was January 21st, 2025. I was running a solo observation shift, midnight to 0800 hours. Standard rotation for postdocs, you get the night shifts, you do the routine observations, you hope for good data to publish. My advisor, Dr. Raymond Chen, had left at 2300 hours after reviewing my observation plan, pulsar timing study. Completely routine, nothing that required supervision. I'd run this exact observation protocol 40 times over the past 6 months. The VLA control room is located in the center of the array, a single-story building housing all the processing equipment, monitoring stations, and life support for overnight shifts. At night, especially in winter, you're completely alone. Nearest town is Magdalena, 25 miles east, and there's nothing but high desert scrubland in every direction. I started the observation sequence at midnight. All 27 dishes moved to their initial positions, motors humming, tracking systems locked onto pulsar J 437. Data started flowing, radio emissions from a neutron star 25,000 light years away, spinning at millisecond intervals. Everything was normal until 0215 hours. Dish 19, positioned on the northwest arm of the array about a mile from the control building, stopped tracking the pulsar. Its orientation shifted 23 degrees south, and according to my monitors, it started receiving a signal, a strong signal, terrestrial origin, moving. I checked the diagnostics, no equipment malfunction. The dish was functioning perfectly. It was just tracking something that shouldn't exist, a radio source at ground level, moving across the desert at high velocity, approaching from the northwest. I pulled up the tracking plot. The source was closing on the control building at approximately 40 miles per hour, following no road or trail, just moving in a straight line across rough terrain. My first thought, vehicle with a radio transmitter, maybe a rancher, maybe military from one of the test ranges to the west. But the signal strength was wrong, too powerful, too focused, like the source was beaming directly at Dish 19 with intentional precision. I tried to filter out the interference, retarget Dish 19 to the pulsar. The dish refused commands. It stayed locked on the terrestrial source, tracking it with the kind of precision we normally reserve for distant quasars. Then my radio crackled the emergency frequency we used for safety communications across the facility. Lisa, this is Ray. I'm having vehicle trouble about 2 miles northwest of the control building. Can you come help? I need a jump start. Dr. Chen's voice, perfect inflection, slight Chinese accent, the familiar tone he used when he was trying not to sound irritated. But Dr. Chen had left 2 hours ago. I'd watched him drive away, heading east toward Magdalena. I keyed my radio. Ray, you left at 2300 hours. How are you northwest of the facility? I came back, forgot my laptop with tomorrow's observation schedule. Truck died on the access road. Can you bring the facility jumper cables? That almost made sense. Dr. Chen was notorious for forgetting things, but something felt wrong. What observation are we running tomorrow? I asked. Pause. The pulsar timing study, J437. You know this. That's tonight's observation. Tomorrow we're scheduled for the Galactic Center survey. Longer pause. Right. Sorry. I'm tired, and it's cold out here. Can you just help me? I checked the tracking plot. The radio source was now 1.3 miles out, still approaching at 40 miles per hour, directly from the northwest, exactly where Dr. Chen claimed to be stranded. Ray, what's your exact location? About 2 miles northwest on the maintenance road. You'll see my headlights. I switched to the facility's external camera system. We had 6 cameras covering the approach roads. I cycled through them all, showed empty roads, no vehicles, no headlights. I'm not seeing any vehicle on camera, I said. Cameras have blind spots. I'm here. Please, Lisa. It's 12 degrees out here. The tracking plot updated. The source was now 1 mile out, still moving at 40 mph, still heading directly for the control building. I made a decision. I locked the control room door, activated the security system, and called the actual Dr. Chen on his cell phone. He answered on the third ring, groggy. Lisa, what's wrong? Where are you right now? Home in Magdalena, asleep. Or I was. What's happening? Someone's using your voice on the emergency frequency, claiming to be stranded northwest of the facility. I heard rustling, like he was sitting up. I'm nowhere near the facility. I've been home for 2 hours. I know. But something's out there, and it's pretending to be you. The radio crackled again. Lisa, why did you call me? I'm right here. Just come outside and help me. Please. But I was on the phone with Dr. Chen. He was hearing the same transmission I was. That's my voice, he said quietly. That's exactly my voice. How is that possible? I don't know, but it's closing on the control building. Dish 19 is tracking it, whatever it is. It's emitting a powerful radio signal. What kind of signal? I pulled up the spectrum analysis. The signal was unlike anything I'd seen, complex, modulated, carrying what looked like data patterns, almost like communication. It's structured, intelligent. It's not random interference. Can you decode it? I ran it through our analysis software. The computer struggled for a moment, then output a translation based on pattern recognition. The message repeated in clear text on my screen, requesting entry, cold, need, shelter, Lisa, please, over and over. The same message, encoded in radio waves, transmitted from something approaching at 40 miles per hour across the desert. Jesus, Dr. Chen whispered over the phone. Don't let it in. Whatever you do, stay in the control room. The tracking plot showed the source at half a mile now. 30 seconds until it reached the building. I activated the external cameras, pointed them northwest toward the approach vector. At first I saw nothing but darkness and scrubland illuminated by the building's security lights. Then something entered the frame. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, bipedal, moving with a smooth loping gait that covered ground impossibly fast. The body shape was roughly humanoid, but wrong, proportions off, limbs too long. And it was glowing faintly in the infrared spectrum that the cameras barely picked up, like it was radiating heat or energy. 20 seconds out, Lisa, Doctor. Chen's voice on the radio perfectly synchronized with the thing's approach. I can see the building. I'm almost there. Please unlock the door. It's so cold. The external cameras showed it reaching the building perimeter. It stopped at the fence line, a simple chain link barrier marking the control building's immediate area. And it spoke, not on the radio, out loud. I heard it through the building's walls. Lisa, I need help, please. Dr. Chen's voice. But the lips on that thing didn't move right. The jaw articulated wrong. It's at the fence, I told Dr. Chen on the phone. It's not trying to climb over, just standing there. Good, the fence must matter. Some kind of boundary it can't cross. But even as he said it, the thing stepped over the fence. Easily. One long stride, and it was inside the perimeter, approaching the building entrance. Spoke too soon, I said. It's coming to the door. I watched on the monitor as it reached the entrance, a reinforced steel door with an electronic lock. The thing stood there for a moment, then raised one elongated hand and knocked 3 times. Patient, polite. Lisa, please let me in. I'm very cold. I need shelter. What does it want? I asked Dr. Chen. Really? I don't know, but don't give it entry. Whatever happens, don't open that door. The knocking continued. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, methodical. Then the radio frequency changed. The signal, Dish 19 was receiving shifted spectrum, increased in power. The new message decoded automatically. I know you're afraid. I understand. But I mean no harm. I only seek warmth, companionship, understanding. It's trying to communicate, I said. Really communicate. This isn't just mimicry, or it's intelligent enough to know what to say. The knocking stopped. The thing stood at the door, perfectly still, visible on the external camera, waiting. Then every light in the control building went out. Emergency power didn't kick in. Battery backups didn't activate. Complete darkness. Lisa? Dr. Chen's voice in my ear, on the phone. What happened? Power failure. Everything's down. But that was impossible. We had redundant systems, backup generators, battery arrays. Nothing short of a total electrical failure could kill all of them simultaneously. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, activated it. The control room looked normal, equipment dark, monitors dead, but structurally intact. Then I heard footsteps inside the building, coming from the equipment bay. There's something inside, I whispered. That's impossible. You locked the door. I know. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, moving through the building toward the control room. I looked at the internal door, also locked, also steel reinforced. The doorknob turned. Locked. It couldn't open. The doorknob turned again. Rattled. Something on the other side testing it. Then Dr. Chen's voice from behind the door. Lisa, let me in. I came back to help. Please. You're on the phone with me, I said to the real Dr. Chen. You're in Magdalena. I know, he said. Don't respond to it. The thing behind the door knocked. 3 times. Pause. 3 times. Lisa, it's cold out here in the hallway. The power's out. I can't see. Please let me in so we can figure this out together. I stayed silent, pressed against the far wall. Phone gripped in my shaking hand. The knocking stopped. Silence for 30 seconds. And the door opened. Not broken. Not forced. It just opened. Lock disengaging smoothly, like someone had used a key. The thing stood in the doorway. In my phone's flashlight beam, I could see it clearly now. It had adapted, taken on a more human shape. It looked almost like Dr. Chen. Same height, same build, same features rendered in that faint infrared glow. Hello, Lisa, it said. I'm sorry I frightened you. That wasn't my intention. On the phone, Dr. Chen was yelling, "Get out! Run! Now!" But I couldn't move. The thing stepped into the room. "I've been listening to your transmissions for months," it said, "learning your language, your patterns, your relationships. Dr. Chen seemed like someone you'd trust, someone you'd help. Was I wrong?" "What are you?" I managed to ask. "I'm what you've been searching for all those years, pointing your dishes at the sky, listening for signals from distant stars. But you never thought to listen here, to your own planet, to the things that exist in frequencies you don't monitor." It moved closer. I backed away until I hit the wall. "I need a host," it continued. "A form that can move in your world, interact with your species, learn from direct experience rather than distant observation. You're perfect, intelligent, isolated. No one will notice the change for hours. Dr. Chen knows I'm here. He'll come looking. Dr. Chen is 30 minutes away. By the time he arrives, you'll greet him at the door. You'll explain that the power failure was a blown transformer. You'll show him that you're fine, and he'll believe you, because you'll still be you, mostly." My hand found something on the equipment rack, a heavy flashlight, steel body. I swung it at the thing's head. It caught my wrist mid-swing, effortlessly. Its hand was cold, too cold, like touching dry ice. "Please don't make this difficult," it said. "It works better if you're calm." Then it opened its mouth too wide, jaw unhinging like a snake, and exhaled. The breath was visible, luminous, the same faint glow the thing's body emitted. It flowed toward me like smoke, surrounded me, and I felt it enter my lungs, cold, impossibly cold, like breathing liquid nitrogen. And then, nothing. I remember Dr. Chen arriving 45 minutes later. I remember greeting him at the door, explaining about the blown transformer, showing him the trip breaker. I remember him checking on me, asking if I was okay, accepting my reassurance that I was fine. I remember continuing the observation after he left, watching Dish 19 return to tracking the pulsar, the terrestrial signal gone as if it had never existed. I remember filing my observation report. Power failure at 02:15 hours. 40-minute interruption. Observation resumed at 0300 hours. Data quality acceptable despite the gap. I remember all of it. But here's what I don't remember, and this is what keeps me awake now. I don't remember making the decision to lie to Dr. Chen. I don't remember deciding to file a false report. I don't remember choosing to hide what happened. Those actions feel like mine. They sound like my voice when I replay them. They're logged in my own handwriting, in my field notes, but I don't remember choosing them. It's been 3 weeks since that night. I'm still working at the VLA, still running observations, still interacting with colleagues who notice nothing wrong. But sometimes I catch myself standing outside at night, staring northwest toward where the thing came from, and I realize I've been standing there for 20 minutes without remembering walking outside. Sometimes I find notes in my handwriting that I don't remember writing, frequency ranges to monitor, signal patterns to watch for, coordinates for specific regions of the desert. And twice now, I've woken up in the control room with no memory of how I got there, with Dish 19 pointed at the ground instead of the sky, receiving signals I don't understand from sources I didn't target. Last week, Dr. Chen mentioned I seemed different, more focused, he said, more dedicated to the work. I smiled and thanked him, but I don't remember deciding to smile. It just happened. Automatic, exactly the right response to avoid suspicion. So here's my question, and I need you to think about it carefully. Am I still me? Am I Lisa Park, writing this account to warn others? Or am I something else, something that used to be Lisa Park, that's been broadcasting my story to lure others into curiosity? And here's the worst question. How would I know the difference? If you work in radio astronomy, if you monitor signals, if you spend your nights alone listening to transmissions from the deep dark, check your observation logs. Check them carefully. Look for gaps. Look for signals you don't remember targeting. Look for times when dish 19 or whatever your equivalent is pointed somewhere it shouldn't. And if you find them, ask yourself, did I do that? Did I make that choice? Or did something else decide for me? Because they're not out there in distant space waiting for us to find them. They're already here in the desert, in the frequencies we don't monitor. And some of us have been listening to them for months without knowing it. Some of us might be them already. I know I am. I think I am. I hope I'm not. But I honestly can't tell anymore. And if you can't tell either, if you've been reading this feeling like something's familiar, like you've experienced gaps in your memory, like you've made decisions that don't feel quite like your own decisions, then maybe we're both the same thing now. Maybe we have been for a while. Maybe that's why you're still reading. Subscribe if you want, or don't. I'll keep posting either way. Not because I choose to, but because something wants me to. Something that learned that the best way to spread is through story, through testimony, through voices that sound human enough to be trusted. Your choice whether to believe me. If you still make choices, if you ever did,